Please take your seat. Okay, and just as a reminder, we're using the room microphones again, which are very sensitive. They involve a lot of crosstalk, so please limit that as much as possible during the meeting. So hello, everyone. I am Brad Sherburne, the chair of Manhattan Community Board of 5. Welcome to our full board meeting. We will begin tonight with our public hearing, so I will hand it over to our first vice chair, Yaron Noti Victor.
Good evening. This is the public hearing of Manhattan Community Board 5. I'm Yaron Noti Victor, and I'll be your chair for the public hearing. During this hearing, members of the public are invited to speak for 2 minutes on the subject set forth in the agenda or on any topic that relates to the affairs of the community district. If you would like to address the board before it votes on any matters tonight, now is your opportunity to do so. Although there will be a public session during the full board meeting later, that public session will be the end of the meeting after all of the votes have been taken. So if you want to address the board on any matter before it votes tonight, now is your time to do so. If you'd like to speak during the public hearing and you are in person, please fill out a speaker form. If you're joining us online, please use the raise hand feature now if you want to speak. You are recognized, you will be able to unmute. And we will start the public hearing tonight with Donna Murphy. Donna, if you could go to that podium up there, that would be great.
Hi, everybody. My name is Donna Murphy. I'll just like to introduce myself and my colleague sitting over there in the white t-shirt. We are both from the New York Public Library. I'm at the 58th Street Library located at 58th Street between Lexington and 58 and Park. Leanna is the 53rd Street Library. She's on 53rd and 6th, basically, right across the street from the MoMA. If you don't already know, and the public doesn't already know, the library offers all sorts of programs which are free. We are wrapping up our tax-free prep, so no more right there. Leanna, great branch, offers a lot of free services for teens, children, and adults. Please, we ask you guys, we've already kind of partnered with a lot of our elected officials to have tabling, mobile hours there. So we're open to that. Please contact us. Our names are located on our websites. And thank you all. And hopefully you'll see me again next month. Have a great night.
Yeah. Or anyone else in person? Okay, if not, we'll go online to Charles Nye.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi there. I'm Charles Nye. I am a resident of the district, constituent of the community board. So I would like to raise my concerns about the parades that happen during this time of the year. I'm someone who goes to the parades on Madison Avenue, which the Parks Committee has basically had a hearing on. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. But I'm someone who goes to those parades a lot, and I love them. They're really good. They're really wonderful. The problem is some of them use a lot of amplified music. And I remember last year, a member of the public complained about the Persian parade in particular. You know, it's lovely when these parades have live bands or marching bands and music like that. It's really sad when they result in having every single float having loud amplified music, which, you know, echoes a lot down the avenue. I'm also concerned about when they have their stalls, when they have their setup. You know, when you close down a street, a side street, and a parade is only using less than half of that closed street, it's a real hassle to the neighbors who live in the area, and it makes me wonder, do they really need that whole side street closed for 6 stalls that are so tiny that they don't take up anything? And in fact, I had pictures from last year which I did share with the chair of the Parks Committee. So I hope that the committee can think about that and also see for themselves and attend those parades. I'm also concerned about a shooting that happened in the district outside my apartment building. Actually, it was a security guard from my apartment building who got shot, a breaking ground run business. And I was wondering if one of the committees, I don't know if it falls within land use or the quality of life city services committee, could bring in Breaking Ground, who are actually working on a building, a brand new building in the district, the Stewart, they're renovating that Stewart Hotel, and come in and speak to the board about what happened there and about the security of residents such as myself who live in subsidized housing, and about how effective that security is, because a lot of times I do feel unsafe in my building, and sometimes security will allow people to come in to visit me without those people showing ID and things like that. So I'm really concerned about how Universal Allied Security Company handles security for these buildings. So I do request if that could happen. Thank you for hearing my concerns, and thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, we'll go now to Deborah Larison. Deborah, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. I'm a resident of 21st Street between 5th and 6th Avenue, and we've continued to raise the issue of the nightclubs at the between 19th and 21st Street towards 6th Avenue. We continue to experience quality of life issues. There are patrons that are being overserved that spill out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The rhetoric is loud. They are sometimes mostly sounds violent. It's unsafe. And what happens is that the traffic pulls up to these clubs, and then it blocks off the street, and the taxi cabs and other traffic starts blowing the horns. And there isn't a night that you get a restful night's sleep on these blocks on a Friday night or a Saturday night. And it's really devaluing our properties here. These clubs, we've spoken to the police. These people have been overserved. There was an incident in one of the clubs on 19th Street where they actually Mirandized a patron who had been in a bar for 6 hours. I think we can all agree that if you're in a bar for 6 hours, you should only be there to get a paycheck. And there's just nothing but, it just continues to be a drunken brawl. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to see if we can't resolve this amicably. But if I were to really voice my opinion, these clubs belong on the West Side Highway. They don't belong here in this neighborhood. We're trying to upgrade the neighborhood, and we have successfully upgraded the neighborhood. The apartments are beautiful. It's residential. And I think we really need to think about the quality of life issue. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Kim Tabbitt. Kim, are you there?
Hi. Okay, trying again. Thank
Yep.
you. Good evening, everybody. And I wanted to piggyback off of what Ms. Larison discussed, and that is specifically to address the resolution set forth tonight for Boxers 37 West 20th Street. And on behalf of the whole Flatiron 20th and 21st Street Association, I'd like to sincerely thank the SLAP committee for taking clear and decisive action by asking or by recommending a resolution that the SLA initiate enforcement action against boxers. And we strongly urge the full board to approve the resolution. As is outlined in the resolution, this operator has demonstrated a sustained pattern of noncompliance and a disregard for both regulatory obligations and the surrounding community. Given that it has taken years to reach this point, we strongly urge the committee to remain actively engaged and ensure that this matter continues to move forward without delay. We also hope that the SLAP committee will follow through and use this opportunity to establish a more structured line of communication and oversight as this case progresses. More broadly, we've observed that coordination between agencies can often be fragmented. To address this, and as the committee itself has suggested, we hope CB5 will help convene a meeting between the NYPD, the SLA, a city representative, the offices of Senator Krueger and Assemblymember Tony Simone, and our block association as a representative of the community. And the goal would be to ensure accountability in this case and identify improvements to the process moving forward. In particular, Boxer's recent liquor license was approved by the SLA before CB5 had the opportunity to provide input. If, as the SLA has suggested, the renewal process is not an appropriate moment for enforcement, then it's critical that we clarify when and how communities can effectively seek recourse when operators consistently fail to meet their obligations. Thank you again for your leadership and continued attention to the matter.
Thank you. We'll go to David Visoki.
Hi, this is David Visoki. I'm echoing the last two callers. I do live on 20th Street, directly across from Boxers. And we have a 24-hour doorman. And, we just can't tell you what is going on the streets outside of Boxers. But I think that's been discussed time and time again. I just have to, we're all listening very closely in this room. And Boxers clearly oversubscribes the number of people are allowed in the bar. I think they have 95 people that are allowed, or 110. But clearly, time and time again, they have double, triple, 4 times the amount. We always hear about these fires that kill all these people in overcrowded bars. And I just want to make sure that we all hear that when, God forbid, something happens there, or in our neighborhood, or in our city, and that we heard that there's a problem, and we never did anything about it. So I just want everybody to hear this one message. And secondly, and probably more important, that 19th, 20th, and 21st Street, between 5th Avenue and 6th Avenue, has the capacity, the amount of bars that we have. Bars, clubs, DJs, and nightclubs. And I think the mindset of all of us here together, we have to say enough. Enough 4 o'clock in the morning closings, enough open DJs, enough of the pandemonium in residential neighborhoods. And I just want everybody to hear that and then set the agenda going forward, so we're not reinventing the wheel time and time again when yet another club is looking to open up and have 4 o'clock openings, 4 o'clock closings, that is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll come back to the room now to Lisa Wager. Lisa, if you want to go up to, that podium.
Hello, I'm Lisa Wager, Director of Government Community Relations at the Fashion Institute of Technology, the SUNY College on West 27th Street between 7th and 8th in the district. April is Earth Month, and my report tonight is all about sustainability. Since 2007, FIT's Sustainable Business and Design Conference has built a global community of forward-thinking thinkers forging sustainable solutions, and today we wrapped up our 20th conference. This year's theme was Industry Disruptors, celebrating 2 decades of progress by highlighting those transforming our industries for the better. The 2-day conference features business and design experts in workshops, on panels, and in dialogue with hundreds of in-person participants and many more watching the live stream. Topics included design innovation, showcasing cutting-edge materials, bio-innovations, and transformative practices, all of which we do and create at FIT, policy, which we live at FIT, disruptive business practices, rethinking circular investment, production, manufacturing, and supply chains, and shaping the sustainability narratives, communication, education, amplifying climate action and solutions. The conference truly advances the sustainability agenda with executable concepts and strategies for business and designers, from activists to sole operator startups to established brands. Sticking with the sustainability theme, I'm delighted to share that the Joyce F. Brown Academic Building, which CB5 endorsed unanimously in 2009 with a resolution, and which we just opened in October as the campus's first new academic building in nearly 50 years, has been recognized with LEED Gold status. The building, designed by Shop Architects for optimal energy performance, features solar panels capable of producing an estimated more than 21,000 kilowatt hours of energy per year, highly efficient plumbing fixtures that decrease water consumption by more than 35%, and demand-controlled ventilation that turns off and on when rooms are or minimally occupied. And the building won gold in the higher education category of the World Architecture News Awards, which celebrate projects around the world that demonstrate innovation, strong design thinking, and meaningful impact on the built environment. The WAN Awards are one of the largest and most globally connected architecture award programs, with annual entries from 70 plus countries. We're very proud, doing our bit in the neighborhood to make it a little better and prettier. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back online to Matt C. And if Matt, you could give us your complete name there. Matt, are you able to?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I had questions regarding the community regarding boxers. There was a community member who said that they sent videos of incidences periodically throughout the night. Can those videos be made available to the entire community? I think it's important for everyone to see the actual activities. It's one thing to say X, Y, and Z, but a picture and a video is worth 1,000 words. 2, where is the enforcement? There's been conversation that Boxers has completely gone over their occupancy load. Does that make the state liquor authority liable that if there's a fire and there were more than 100 people and they knew that there were more than 100 people in the space? How does that play out? Is the Community Board 5 responsible for not highlighting this and being aware of it? And then 3, when has it ever been, or has there ever been a situation where CB5 has been able to remove a license from a restaurant? We go through all of these long efforts to put these requirements on restaurants, but it doesn't seem like there's any enforcement and or just slaps on wrists and restaurants continue to do what they want to do. Thank you.
Okay, no other speakers. I'll turn it back over to Pat.
Thank you, everyone. I will now call to order the full board meeting of Manhattan Community Board 5. I'm Brad Sherburne. Full board meeting by hearing from the elected officials that are in attendance and wish to address the board. The elected officials will be followed by any representatives of other electeds who may report to the board for 2 minutes each. The board then enters into its business session, which tonight consists of approval of the minutes, district manager's report, chair's report, committee reports, and resolutions, with a question and comment period, which we will then follow with new business. Lastly, we will then conduct a public session for those who would like to address the board on any item that was not covered during the meeting and that they did not speak to the board about during the public hearing, followed by adjournment. I will ask all speakers to speak slowly and clearly. I will start this evening's meeting calling on elected officials. I believe Senator Gonzalez just joined us. So you can go first, please.
Thank you so much.
Up to the podium over there.
Over.
Yes, that one in the corner.
Oh, this one in the corner. Great. Hi. Good evening. I'm a little shorter, so I'm going to pull it off. How's everyone doing tonight? It's really nice to be here. I know I've met most of you, but for any new faces, if this is the first time we're connecting, I'm Senator Gonzalez. I represent District 59, which is a 3-borough Senate district on the east side of Manhattan, right here. from 14th Street up to the UN, and then Northern Brooklyn in Greenpoint, Williamsburg, and Western Queens in Astoria, Long Island City. I'm in my second term. I am going for my third term, although it's looking optimistic as we just made the ballot. And I obviously am in the legislative session alongside incredible colleagues like Assemblymember Simone, who is here tonight. But instead of being in Albany this week, we are back home because we once again have a late budget. And as many of you know, the budget has been taking more time this year because there are a significant number of pain points or points of disagreement. One notable one is on the CLCPA, which for folks who are not familiar, is the state's landmark climate law that essentially mandates that we operate a majority renewable energy by 2030. The governor is looking to change parts of that law. I represent on both sides of the river environmental justice communities. So a big portion of my work in the last few weeks has been working alongside a coalition of environmental justice advocates to oppose those changes, because I do believe that, as many of you who have cars, I do not have a driver's license, but for those of you who do drive, I'm sure you are feeling the result of our dependence on fossil fuel when you fill up your tank, because that's dependent on foreign wars that are now increasing prices. So I do still want to say that we are standing firm on our demand that we build out maximum amounts of renewable energy. There are other points of debate from immigration. I do have an immigration bill that I've been working on to protect students from ICE. That has been pushed forward as part of an immigration package that's being negotiated with the governor. And other, proposals around auto insurance have come up recently. So in the budget, as far as what we are fighting for, not only in those big buckets, but in the district, include Bellevue Hospital. I am, of course, really proud to represent that hospital. Last year, we advocated for $110 million to renovate their psychiatric inpatient services for both adults and minors. I hope many of you never have to see the inside of this room, but I did a tour and then also held a tour with my colleagues. The size of their intake room is maybe a quarter of this room. That means if you're someone who's unhoused or someone who is simply experiencing a panic attack on the street, you're brought to the same place. And it's so tight that oftentimes there are disagreements amongst patients. It's unsafe. We are unable to sometimes bring in the NYPD who want to and need to be present. And in addition to that, the rest of the experience is such that after you go to this intake room, you are brought up several floors, which is really disorienting for someone who needs stability in a moment of a mental health crisis. So we advocated for that $110 million, and I'm really proud that the mayor announced 48.5 in his initial city budget proposal. And now we are working on the state level to secure an additional $40 million for the children's psychiatric inpatient beds, which also I look like truly, they're so outdated, but they look like the inside of a jail cell. It is falling down. Like there are parts that are falling down, the paint's chipping, the beds are quite sad. So we want to have a better experience for our minors. I've been fighting for that in the state budget alongside Assemblymember Powers. We got many of our colleagues to sign on. We did another tour recently with Bellevue, and we'll continue to push that forward alongside Community Board 6. Some other important funding initiatives. As we all know, gender affirming care has been a big topic of conversation. NYU Langone on the east side of Manhattan was the first hospital to discontinue gender affirming care for youth. Mount Sinai quickly joined. I had worked on this issue last year with the Attorney General and gotten them to reverse that decision. At this point, they have refused to reverse it this time because they are quite literally capitulating to the Trump administration, because their decision to go back and discontinue that care was a result of federal pressure, where the Department of Justice was harassing them. But we know that according to New York state law, that is discrimination. And we have to make sure our institutions, no matter who you are or what they are following state law. So we are, once again, working with the Attorney General, but in the state budget have now gotten in the Assembly one house and Senate one house an $8 million fund for families who are seeking that care for their for their children, but have had their care disrupted. And I'm really proud to also say Assemblymember Simone has been such a big advocate in the Assembly for this and has come to our pressers and rallied. So I just wanted to shout him out for that work. I think the last thing I will highlight in the state budget, I carry the Corporate Fair Share Act alongside Zoran, who is our incredible mayor. It is a bill to allow New York City to raise taxes on the wealthiest corporations. And it is the increases would be 0.4% for an unincorporated business to 1.8% if you're financial services firms. So think your Morgan Stanleys or your JP Morgans. That is I think they will argue, a significant increase. I would argue still puts us below what New Jersey is currently taxing similar businesses at. But we need this because we do have a city budget deficit of $5.4 billion. And if we are going to begin to close it, we need to make sure that this bill and others get passed. This bill alone would raise $1.7 billion in the next year. So these are some of the big budget fights outside of the budget. And I'll end here because I'm happy to take questions. I have been working on my technology committee. I chair the Internet Technology Committee. I also chair the Elections Committee. I joke that the leader saw me do 3 boroughs and said she can go ahead and do 2 committees. It has been a significant amount of work, but I am really proud to say that so many of our constituents who are worried about the attacks on elections federally have been very active in pushing together a suite of bills that address election cybersecurity, address election officer protection, that expand access to the ballot box, because the best thing we can do at the state level is make sure our elections are sound if we're not seeing that same energy at the federal level. And that overlaps with the AI space because as chair of the technology committee, we have been looking into chatbots, misinformation, and deepfakes. So with that, I'm going to end. Happy to talk more about any of these, and just certainly want to thank your board for giving me the opportunity to present today. Thank you.
Are there any questions? All right, great. Thank you.
That means I was thorough. Thank you guys so much. And then I guess one thing, I did leave my board report. It includes our community events, our office hours that are coming up. That is now next to Harvey's flyer on the table. So thank you. And I hope to see you. Well, I'll probably be in Albany next month, but hope to see you in the fall as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Yes.
Assemblymember Simone, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. It's been a while since seeing you all in person. I will try to be as brief. Hi, Councilmember Harvey Epstein. We miss you in Albany. I'll try to be as brief as possible. First, I want to touch upon some of the things that we proposed in the One House budget from the Assembly, and then I want to discuss some of the initiatives and legislation I'm proposing with my colleagues. And thirdly, I just want to briefly comment. I know CB5 is taking up the Penn transformation background, which includes some of my ideas, not solely my ideas, my vision with colleagues and others of creating a 24/7 live, work community, play community around Penn Station. So hopefully I can cover that briefly. But on the One House, I am proud to say we've offered some initiatives on affordability, power utility rebate checks. Everyone knows our utility bills are out of control. I've had residents call me that they weren't even in their apartment all month on the west side, and it was $500 from Con Ed, and they were there one day. They've been traveling all month. They didn't leave the lights on, which is ridiculous. So the governor, I know, is looking at giving rebate checks up to $500 to each family. And then, Ben, sit down. Sorry. And then we're also looking at tax cuts for the middle class, about a 1% middle class tax cut. It doesn't sound like a lot, but with a family who makes about $300,000 combined, it's about you can do the math, $3 grand. So it's still substantial, or $300 up to $3,000, depending on if that passes in the final budget. We're also looking to make housing more affordable. In the One House budget, we include $750 million for NYCHA, $750 million to preserve Mitchell-Lama housing, $250 million for housing vouchers, and $50 million for down payment assistance to help more New Yorkers achieve affordable homes. These are drops in the bucket. I know many of folks I've talked to individually here in CB5 that we're never getting out of this housing crisis just by funding it through the state legislature and the state budget and the city budget, or even the federal budget, which is now trying to cut funding for housing. We need to increase supply, and not just on the west side of Manhattan, but throughout the five boroughs and also throughout the state. We also invested $39.4 billion in school aid, expanding after school programs and funds, New York City's class size mandate, which I know with the problems with the city budget, Harvey may want to speak to this. It may be hard to implement as quick as we would like, but we all know smaller class sizes helps our students and kids. Now I would like to talk about a few initiatives, some legislation I've introduced. One I'm very hopeful for, the MELT Act. It unmasks ICE. It's crazy that I have to talk about this in this day and age, that we have secret police, unmasked, unaccountable, no badge number. Right now, it is an immigration package we're hearing. As Senator Gonzalez alluded to, our budget is late because the governor has introduced several things last minute, which annoys the hell out of many of us. The MELT Act is in the immigration package. I'm hoping it stays in the package. We're not sure where the governor, how far she will go. She's introduced several measures of safe zones, that ICE should not be allowed to go near schools or nurseries, like you saw in Minnesota and other places in the country. My bill is supported by lots of law enforcement, mostly former law enforcement, because as you know, there is a blue wall and many current law enforcement don't want to say what they think. But we've talked to detectives, we've talked to cops throughout the state, including my nephew is a detective in Suffolk County. Even the police don't want to work with masked agents that have no badge. My bill is different than the California bill that was struck down in court. It does not just specifically say ICE, it says all law enforcement. And we've talked to constitutional lawyers, but the supremacy clause, we think it will stand up in court. I also have a bill, the Psych Pact, about New York State licensed mental health care professionals to work outside of New York. Right now, it's crazy. I shouldn't use the word crazy. It's challenging if you have a therapist and you're a senior and you have to move last minute for retirement, or you're a student going away to college. You can technically not use the therapist that you have been using for years. And the Western states have a psych pact, but unfortunately, New York State doesn't. There's been some opposition to it, saying we don't want to reduce standards. We're not asking that. The psych pact simply says that therapists, not medical doctors, can practice across state lines if they meet New York State requirements. So we're hoping to pass that. There was a terrible incident of not a constituent, but a colleague's constituent on the Upper East Side who went away to Brown University during COVID, was isolated, had a family therapist all his life, but the therapist didn't want to technically it's breaking the law, did not want to break the law and give him care while he was at Brown University, and he took his life. Clearly, this is not the only reason, but you should be able to have your therapist go across state lines if they meet the requirements in New York State. So hoping to pass that. The last piece of legislation I want to talk about, which I know may be controversial among some community boards and block associations, is the Host Act. The World Cup is coming, and New York City is not prepared. Thousands are coming. We've had an outreach from many small businesses to say, why can't we be like Europe? Why can't we show the game outside of our bars? Why can't we have a unified license so that we're not crowded inside a bar unsafe, so we can actually help the crowds enjoy the game, whether it's residents, whether it's tourists, to watch a screen outside and also be able to drink a beverage. These are not free-for-alls. I know Fox News tried to make it a free-for-all. You cannot walk around with a beer in the street. It would be a designated zone. For example, on 9th Avenue, there are several bars there, sports bars, gay bars, you name it, next to each other. They would apply for a uniform license, and 4 or 5 venues, if their community board weighed in and approved, could have screens outside during the World Cup, extended liquor hours. Clearly, we're rushing this because the World Cup is around the corner. And if we don't pass it this session, we want to set a precedence to make it easier to allow this when we have huge sporting events or things where small business can thrive. We want to help our small businesses make more money. We also want to make sure New Yorkers and tourists can enjoy sporting events like the World Cup. As they say, let's make New York City fun again. The last thing I want to say is, as Senator Gonzalez alluded to, the budget is late because at the last minute, the governor threw in, she wanted to roll back the CLCPA, which many, including myself, are opposed to. We're behind the curve on this. It was to answer a lawsuit by environmental advocates. We don't think we can wait a moment longer. I know big business is in her ear, and I know the Business Council told us, has convinced her that it will raise costs. There's been no evidence it will raise costs. What's raising utility costs right now is our dependency on fossil fuels. And this nation and our state not taking the lead, which California has begun to take the lead, to ensure that we electrify and move away from fossil fuels. So that's holding up the budget. She hasn't told us what changes she wants. She wrote an op-ed. It was very vague. We're still waiting for the details. And quickly, the last things that are holding up the budget is the immigration package bill, auto insurance reform, which I still don't see evidence that's actually going to save anyone money. It seems like she's taking the messaging points from Uber and Lyft and not listening. While I don't agree with everything the tri-lawyers are saying, I don't think you should put a cap. Say, for instance, the MTA has approached legislators that if a bus is in an accident and they can't prove who's at fault, there's a cap of what you can recoup for the individual family or driver. We don't think that's fair. We do think there's fraud out there, and fraud definitely should be fought, and we should figure out ways to bring down insurance premiums. But right now, it seems like we're looking at the wrong targets. We should be looking at insurance companies who keep raising their rates. I don't own a car, so I'm not an expert on auto insurance, but it does affect pedestrians as well. And I think I forgot, and one of the other things holding up the budget is SECRA, the Environmental Review for Housing. You may not all agree with me in this room. I'm a supporter of what the governor is proposing, with caveats. I don't think we should take out labor standards. I still think you should be able to pay labor standards to build. Clearly, it's math, and many folks who build housing will tell you that there's too much regulation, it takes too long. It's, I think, a minimum of 2 years to get past SECRA. We're taking too long to build in the state. We lost 1 congressional seat. We may lose up to 3 if we don't increase supply by over 500,000 units of housing. I'm looking for creative ideas, including shared housing that the great city council members have proposed that we used to have in the past, where if a student moves to New York and their parents are not of means, there's ways of share housing. We need to be more creative in building housing. And I'm not talking about changing the character of your neighborhood or skyscrapers in the West Village, but it is ridiculous that a progressive state could not increase housing supply to house those on the street, more supportive housing in every neighborhood, but also middle class housing. And while I don't believe every developer's what they're saying that they can afford to build more affordable housing, we do have to look at the math. It's too expensive to build in this state, and it takes too long to build in this state. Minneapolis, the rents are dropping because they increase supply. Austin, Texas, it's not rocket science. They increase supply, they put requirements for affordability, their rents are dropping. We need to do that in New York State. Not every neighborhood likes that. I'm not saying we want to change the character of the neighborhood, but where we can, we need to build more housing. Thank you, and I'll take only easy questions. Oh, wait, and I forgot to address, I know tonight you're talking about the Penn Station vision. It's not just my idea. It's several stakeholders put forward, and I'd love to answer questions another time. Maybe I'll come back and see you for that. But I do believe we have an opportunity with the general project plan. The GPP, for anyone who doesn't know, was originally proposed by the last governor. Penn Station, it's out of date. And it's a mechanism to move forward in building around Penn Station. This governor, rightly so, listened to the electeds and decoupled it from Penn Station development downstairs. This is about upstairs. We have an opportunity right now. One developer, Vornado, I'll call them out, should not have all this power to develop 6 office towers the same size as the Empire State Building around Penn Station. We are New York City. We should be more creative than that. We need big and bold ideas. We've talked to a lot of stakeholders, to unions, to other developers, not just for NATO. You could have a beautiful park like Bryant Park when you come out of Penn Station. You could have middle-class housing, market housing, and office towers. I know Vornado has pushed back and saying they want an office tower right in front of Penn Station. But look, I know we have egos in this game, but if you build a beautiful park like Bryant Park, everyone was naysaying Bryant Park. But after they built Bryant Park, they built apartments around it. They had crime went down. It was a 24/7 neighborhood. We need the same thing when you come out of Penn Station. People flee when they come out of Penn Station. You should be able to go to the park after a Knick game instead of going into the street. You should be able to enjoy the game and go back to your apartment in the neighborhood. We need to make it a 24/7 community. And I know CB5 has stood with me and now Controller Levine, former Manhattan Borough President, and State Senator Eric Botcher and others who supported this vision, and many of the nonprofit folks. We can build supportive housing as well. It shouldn't just be one developer telling us we need 6 Empire State sized office buildings. We do need office buildings, but we're in a housing crisis. My plan takes the current idea of 500 units and increases it to 5,000 apartments, which we need, which would help us begin to bring rents down. Thank you.
So we'll take a couple questions. Mike.
Assemblyman, Assemblymember Simone. I agree with most of the stuff you said there, but I just wanted to point out one thing. You talked about bars during the World Cup having open space in the streets for people to watch the game, maybe through the glass window on the TV. I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, in a protracted area. These are in residential areas. And I don't know if you heard the first couple of comments that were made by call-in people here about some proposed bars that are going on 20th Street. But if you think that this is going to pass by the public, I think you got another thing coming to you. We've been saying nay to those kind of people for the longest time. So good luck on trying to win over the votes, but I don't see it happening, to be honest.
So
Your question there, Mike?
yeah, I think your question would be, how is this going to happen when a lot of community boards and folks don't like? We're not proposing drinking necessarily in the street. What we're proposing is, I'm not saying we should, like, it's not my district. Deborah Glick will yell at me for this, but it's not like Bedford Street that's narrow. But on 9th Avenue, if you already have an outdoor cafe, if you already have room on the sidewalk, and we're expanding 9th Avenue, so there will be larger sidewalks. Whether it's in time, I don't know. This is just more of a proposal, whether we're going to do it in time or not. The point of me proposing this bill is we're not ready for the World Cup. In every city in the world, when they have sporting events, they close off their streets so more people can enjoy them. The last time we had many of these sort of World Cups, I think the last World Cup, when we were here, you were crowded into these crowded bars. It's for safety. We're not saying people can walk around the streets. We're saying if we could find an area, and they have to get SLA approval, they have to already have a liquor license. So these aren't new venues. They have to be venues that prove that they've been good neighbors. And if you, and I'm not saying we want it everywhere. Clearly, the applications will be barely in time since we're rushing through with the legislation. And you're right, it's going to be a battle. But I'm one of those people who don't like no for an answer. But and also, I think that if you can find a proper block that's less residential, like 9th Avenue, and find 4 venues that are next to each other, and they already have an outdoor cafe, all this does is allow them to combine their efforts, put screens outside, and increase the space to enjoy the World Cup. Is it going to be tough? Sure. But I didn't get in this business to make it easy. So
Thank you.
Thank you. One more, Kevin.
Thank you. Does your legislation have a closing date or end date for the what did you call it, a standard or uniform?
post-act.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question. The big part I forgot in my presentation is this is a bill just for the beginning of June to the end of July during the World Cup. It's not a permanent. And it's just an idea for when we have future big things coming to our city. Like for instance, my colleague, Assembly Member Bob Carroll wants to bring the Winter Olympics to New York. This bill would apply when the Winter Olympics comes if we wanted to do the same thing. It's only for big major events. It's not permanent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Epstein, would you like to go next?
Yeah.
You know, I'm always happy to follow Assemblymember Simone after he talks. So Tony, it's good seeing you. You know, I don't get to see you every day anymore, you know. So I can't talk about the state budget, but I can talk about the city budget if you want to talk about that. You know, the mayor in February released his preliminary budget. Last week, the council responded to the preliminary budget. The mayor had proposed a 9.5% increase on property tax. People felt like that was going to really hurt small homeowners across the city. And so responded with some other suggestions about other savings and other tax opportunities. I know one thing we're waiting on Albany is taxing high income earners, giving the city the power to do that, allowing the city to increase the corporate tax. And hopefully in the final budget, with my support of Senator Gonzalez and Assemblymember Simone, it gives the city the ability to raise about $5 billion, which it could help with all the things we've been talking about. So you have to, you know, basically the mayor has to submit his executive budget May 1st. Then we'll have additional budget hearings, and the city budget has to be on time. Unlike Albany, we have a deadline of June 30th to finish our budget. So we will hopefully with the state budget done this month, right, Tony?
We hope.
Okay, with the state budget done this month, we can then really go right into the some mood lighting. I like it actually. You can actually get a city budget that makes it work. Folks who are here, you know, you had community board appointments. We are meeting with the borough president tomorrow, trying to make it darker. I don't know what you're doing. I mean, if you put candles out, drink, you know.
Yeah.
We're meeting with the borough president to figure out, you know, obviously he's new to this process. So we're going to figure out what it looks like, but we'll figure out like what this reappointment or appointment process looks like, and we'll have a sense, and maybe by next month, what we can share with all of you. This weekend, participatory budgeting starts. If people know what that is, it's either allows council members to allocate operating or capital or both dollars to potential organizations, and people in the neighborhood get to vote. We're doing operating money this year, which means nonprofits who provide services in the district. That'll start this Saturday and it'll end next Sunday. So if people are interested in voting or learning about it, it's on the PB website. Julia from my team's got information. People know who Julia is. She's over there. And just to help people vote. We want a lot of people to vote because we want to have them help us decide where this money should get to be spent. So we have a lot of events coming up in the next couple of weeks. You know, we have some Earth Day events. We have some e-waste events. So if you look at the newsletter, you can see all those great and fun events that we have coming up. I know you guys are voting tonight on the major concessions agreement. I want to thank the board for taking my thoughts into consideration. We talk a lot about environmental issues, and if we're going to talk about how we deal with Broadway, making sure we have an environmentally friendly frame to that is really important, and make sure that our community-based organizations kind of access to whatever's going to happen on our public plazas, whether it's the World Cup or not. This stretch of Broadway potentially can be used by a lot of businesses, but we want to make sure our neighborhood gets it. Like the Link kiosk, I use this analogy a lot. Even though we have them on the street, it requires 25% of that time on the kiosk to go to nonprofit and government related things. And we want to make sure that our nonprofits and government agencies like the community board will have access to space at events, and making sure that they are partners, making sure when Broadway's redone, there's a publicly available restroom and there's water fountains that are available. All those important amenities that will, you know, hopefully reduce our reliance on single-use items, especially single-use plastic, and to make sure that any concession there doesn't rely on single-use items or single-use plastic unless it's compostable, and making sure we actually can recycle and compost on our streets all over this major concession area. I know we've talked to the bid who's committed to it. We talked to DOT, and hopefully with the support of this board, we can move those issues forward. And so, and and then the last thing I'll just flag, just so you know, the city planning's now coming through with final rules around, last year through some charter changes, I would call the bottom and 12 districts on development of affordable housing will have community boards and elected officials have less say in developments that are happening within their district. And, CB5 might be on that list. I've been warned that it might be. So I just want to flag that for you all, that when the City Planning Commission comes out with the final rules and the bottom 12 council districts or neighborhood districts are, community board districts are assessed, if CB5 is on that list, you will lose a lot of power in deciding some of these land use items. And it is something that the New Yorkers voted on last year, and we'll see what happens, but it will potentially have direct impact on this neighborhood and people here. As Summer Simone said, we are committed to building more housing, especially affordable housing. And we'll see what, if anything, happens and the impact that'll have on the neighborhood. But I would encourage you all to keep your eyes on that and to see what are the bottom 12 and whether that impacts you all. And if there's a question, I'm happy to take it. But if not, I want to get you back to your meeting.
Any questions?
I did so well. No questions. I love that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, I think that is it for electeds. So now we'll move to elected representatives, starting in the room. Julie Rowland from Assemblymember Boris's office.
All right, what's up, CB5? How we doing? It's tough to follow the electeds and then know they're still in the room and do it like this, but here we go. It's great to be here. Is anyone not here? Okay. No, first I really did want to give a shout out to the commercial use task force that's been collecting surveys. Michael Kabak, I don't think he's here. Todd with one. Oh, he is. Oh, great. There we go. Okay, great. Perfect. Well, yeah, actually, I should have seen him before. Christopher Nazaro is not here though, right? Okay, and Todd with 1D. That's right. Okay. We just want to let you know we see the work that you're doing, and Team Boris is just stoked watching your civic engagement in action. So thanks to everyone involved. That's awesome. Yeah, give it up for them. Let's go. All right, 125 remaining. All right, we have a ton of district events, and it's on the report. And also, I mention them all the time. First Saturday of every month, we're doing Shred Truck. So the next one, May 2nd, it's going to be at Sutton Place Park, the 57th Street cul-de-sac. If you have tax forms that you want to safely dispose of, just come hang out with us 10 to 1 that Saturday. There'll be another one the following first Saturday of the month. We also have Mammogram Truck coming with Lenox Hill Neighborhood House. That's May 13th. And we have free legal services with NILAG once a month. The next one's April 28th. Call our office if you want to schedule an appointment. Other than that, since the last meeting, Assemblymember Boris has passed 3 bills through the Assembly. I won't get into all of them, but one that I think is of particular interest is the Bioterrorism Prevention Act, which passed unanimously through the Assembly. We expect it's going to pass through the Senate. Basically, the problem is that companies can sell you custom-made DNA. A lot of labs really trustworthy and great, but for some reason, amazingly, there hasn't been a law that means that they can't make bad pathogens, and especially with the rise of AI, that's even more of a risk. This says, hey, the bar is actually going to be set. We're going to have a standard. You have to follow that, so you can't. You have to block deadly pathogens from being made. So now this has passed the Assembly. Hopefully soon this will be the law in New York. That is pretty much my time. I'm seeing my light. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Maggie Bentley from Representative Nadler's office.
Good evening, everyone. So a few updates from the Congressman's office. As you all know, the Trump administration has launched a military action against Iran without congressional authorization and against the will of the American people. It is illegal, it is reckless, and has already caused needless death and destruction. Trump's escalating rhetoric puts American lives and civilians at further risk. As such, Congressman Nadler and House leadership is calling on the House to return from recess immediately and to vote on the War Powers Resolution to stop the president from taking further military action without congressional approval. With that in mind, if you know of anyone traveling in the Middle East, please encourage them to enroll in the STEP Act. Also follow us on social media and WhatsApp for updates. And if you need emergency assistance abroad, contact the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. And then lastly, our office is now accepting submissions for the Congressional Art Competition. The competition is open to high school students who reside in the 12th congressional districts, and the winning piece will be displayed for 1 year at the U.S. Capitol. Submissions are due April 24th, 2026. For more info, visit our website. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bryce Pear from Councilmember Maloney's office.
Thank you so much. In the last month, Councilmember Maloney did pass her first bill through the City Council. It will mandate that law enforcement authorities and the police department work in conjunction with religious institutions, houses of worship, and religious schools to prepare security plans to keep their congregants and visitors safe. She also is introducing a measure, I think that Councilman Harvey Epstein talked about it a little, that would make it much easier to have shared housing, particularly not requiring every unit to have a kitchen, et cetera, allow for more shared living arrangements. She also passed her first resolution calling on Congress to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. She's working on she's co-sponsored legislation that would establish a pilot program regarding the cleanliness and snow and ice removal from bus shelters, bike share stations, and public communication structures. And she has also co-sponsored legislation to mandate better bus sign transparency about bus lanes, specifically that it would require DOT to post clear signage on each block of streets with bus lane restrictions, indicating the hours and days those restrictions are in effect. She chaired her first committee hearing of the Economic Development Committee, was focused on FIFA. And I think that's about it for this month. I know we've got a lot of stuff on your agenda, and that's all this month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Emily Bachman from the Borough President's office.
Hi, everyone. I'm covering for our community liaison, Sawaiba, who's on vacation, and I'm the land use and planning director for the borough president, Brad Hoyman Siegel. So I'm also excited to stick around and listen to your ULURP conversation later. The borough president wanted to share with all of you that, as you've heard, we've heard a lot about city budget today. Our office also submitted a response to the mayor's preliminary budget. Among other things, we're urging the state to take action to support New York City, including reversing billions in cost shifts. And you can read our full response to the preliminary budget on our website. Brad is also fighting for full, consistent federal funding for the Gateway project, which, as everyone here knows, is critical to Penn Station, Manhattan commuters. He even went to Newark to testify, which was a big lift because he's usually just sticking to Manhattan. And he stressed that funding delays from the federal government mean worse service, longer commutes, economic harm. Our office is going to keep advocating for that critical project. We're also pushing for transparency from the federal government on the Penn Station redevelopment project. And we, along with many of the elected officials represented here today, have been pushing Amtrak to release the Penn Station redevelopment RFP publicly, which they have not done. Our office this weekend is hosting a summer youth resource fair this Saturday, April 11th from 1 to 3 at the Adam Clayton Powell State Office Building up on 125th Street. I have flyers on the table in the front if you want any more information or have teens in your life who you want to encourage to go. And finally, you may have seen the new Hello Gorgeous Welcome to Manhattan sign on the Brooklyn Bridge, which New York Mag dubbed brilliant lowbrow in their approval matrix last month. And I have brought a bunch of free stickers. So if you want a sticker, Hello Gorgeous sticker, they're also on the front table. Thank you.
You. Okay, I think that's it for in person. So I'll go online now to Alex Merides from Senator Liz Kruger's office.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name's Alex Marinides. I'm one of Senator Kruger's community liaisons in her office. At the end of March, the Senate passed our One House budget resolution, as did the Assembly. These One House budgets are the legislature's response to the governor's executive budget proposal, and they serve as the starting point for three-way negotiations on the final state budget. Senator Kruger is very proud to be part of a Senate majority that is putting forward a strong One House budget proposal designed to protect New Yorkers from the damage being inflicted by the federal government or by the administration in Washington, and to address the ongoing challenges our constituents face every day. I don't have enough time to go too much into the details, but it is very focused on affordability and clean energy. Senator Kruger strongly opposes Governor Hochul's attempts to roll back our state climate law, the CLCPA, which I know Senator Gonzalez was speaking about. It was passed in 2019. It set targets and created a process by which our state can avoid the worst effects of the current climate crisis. And now, after years of failing to act at the scale demanded by the crisis, Governor Hochul is claiming that the goalpost must be moved. Reliability, generation capacity, and energy affordability are indeed critical issues that must be addressed. But the answer in all three cases is the same: not the unaffordable fossil fuel status quo that got us into this crisis in the first place, but low-cost, rapidly deployable renewable generation and storage, coupled with energy efficiency and weatherization that helps New Yorkers save money and reduces energy demand. Last but not least, our office will be hosting a virtual town hall on election security, an issue that's at the front of mind for many people these days. We're going to be outlining what New York State and what you specifically can do to ensure safe and secure elections in the face of rising authoritarian rhetoric from Washington. We're going to be joined by Derek Tisler, who's the counsel and manager for elections and government at the Brennan Center for Justice. And you can join us by Zoom or by phone on Monday evening, April 13th. And there will also be a recording provided after the event. So I'm going to put the link to RSVP in the chat. Thank you again for letting me speak, and I will see you all next month.
Thank you, Alex, and send our best to the senator.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will now enter into business session of the board, where, as I mentioned, only board members are allowed to speak. Board members attending virtually, please remember to have your videos on during the meeting. So we're entering the business session, starting with a vote to accept the March minutes. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second, thank you. As a reminder to all members, we are conducting voting using the Google form sent to you by Milan. If you are in person and are having issues or need assistance, the board office is available to assist. For members attending virtually, please let us know in the Zoom chat if you're having any issues. So we will start now with the district manager's report.
Buddy.
Please bring.
Just a few items. Want to let you know that Small Business Services is canvassing the newly rezoned MSMX areas within CB5, going door to door, doing outreach to local businesses. So that is something they are actively doing over the next couple of weeks. And then a couple of items that came to the board and have been delayed in implementation will be completed this month finally. There'll be a new CB5 infill installation on East 33rd Street and Park Avenue. This actually was presented to the board in November 2021. So it is finally happening this month, as well as the Broadway Vision Plan for 41st through 42nd Street, which came to the board in the spring of 2025. That should be completed this month as well. We've talked a bit about World Cup. Want to let you know that the DOT has issued a street construction embargo during the World Cup, June 8th through July 20th. That will impact significant corridors of CB5, much of 34th Street up to 59th Street, for example. Existing permits will be suspended. No new permits will be given during June. Emergency work can still proceed. The same for the Parks Department. They have also issued an emergency rule to be able to freeze or deny new permits during this time for large events that would require significant police presence in parks and plazas. As these are for new events, not recurring events. If you are applying for a FIFA event, that has to be indicated in the title of your permit application. This has caused a lot of consternation, so we are setting up a meeting with the permits office to see if we can get a little more clarification for our local organizations. There will also be a summer 2026 live New York City map where businesses can spotlight themselves on the map. So we will post that link on our website. I just learned today that demolition permits have gone through for the Wellington Hotel on 55th Street and 7th Avenue. So that work will start imminently. There should be a hotline number posted at the construction site for any local complaints about that work. So first, please call that hotline number, then you can call us. If you're spring cleaning, I don't think I heard anybody from Harvey Epstein's office mention this, but there will be a old electronics and textiles community recycling day on Wednesday, April 15th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Flatiron South Plaza. So if you are ready to throw out your computer on tax day, that's where you do it. And for all the elected reports that you've heard referred to, I just want to let you know that we do link to any report that's sent to us by email on our website under the resources section for that particular elected official. So just a reminder to elected reps, if you could send us those reports, we will link to them on our website until the following month. And that's it. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Marisa. So we will now move into the chair's report. So I'm glad you were all able to pull yourself away from the woodcocks outside for our meeting tonight. First, I want to let everyone know that we will be sending out a survey to all board members shortly to gather feedback on how things are going. This is an opportunity for you all to share what's working well in your committees and for the board overall, and where we can improve. So I ask you all to take a few minutes to fill that out once it's circulated, probably after this meeting or later this week. Tonight, we'll have a presentation from David Sigmund on the history of the Penn Station project. To be clear for everyone tonight, there is no action associated with this item for this evening. But as the project continues to progress, there will be actions before the board in the coming months. This presentation is to provide all members, but especially some of our newer ones, with context for this lengthy and complicated process. A comprehensive set of prior resolutions collected by David and the other committee chairs was also added to our website in advance of our meeting tonight, and Marisa sent a link to you all. I encourage you all to at least skim those for when you can, as they provide an even more detailed information and update about the process as we move forward. I also want to share a brief update on Midtown South, which CB5 reviewed last year. We are beginning to see projects come in under this new framework, including a new affordable housing development proposed at 30 West 37th Street. This is the kind of outcome CB5 was hoping to see when these rules were put into place, and it's encouraging to see new housing, particularly affordable housing, starting to move forward in our district, and we hope to see more like this in the months ahead. For our members whose terms are sadly coming to an end soon, I want to remind you that your appointments continue through our next cycle, so you should continue to fully participate in committee and board meetings, and we do expect you to be present and voting at our May full board meeting. And then finally, a quick reminder on virtual attendance. Members are permitted a limited number of virtual attendances across committee and full board meetings. And once that limit is exceeded, attending virtually counts as an absence. So please keep that in mind as you attend your committees and full board. So that concludes the chair's report. Thank you, everyone. We will now move to committee reports and resolutions, starting with state licenses and permits. So Seth, you are up.
All right, thanks, Brad. I'm Seth Borden, Chair of the State Licenses and Permits Committee. We have two, sorry, I'm just gonna take this out. We have two resolutions tonight. May I have them deemed read?
Deemed.
All right. Our first item relates to a renewal application for Boxers at 37 West 20th Street, which Kevin did excellent work on for this one. So as some of the community members alluded to, over the years, we've heard a great deal of negative feedback about this establishment from neighbors. And unfortunately, the State Liquor Authority granted the renewal for this license before we had a chance to weigh in. So this resolution is to send a letter to request that the authority initiate enforcement proceedings into Boxers. So this is a rare step, but in this case, we felt it's warranted because of the issues laid out in the letter. So you have it before you, but I'll highlight a couple specific pieces for the benefit of those who don't have it before them. So the first piece is that Boxers has a substantial record of complaints. Residents have reported, among other things, excessive noise late into the night, large crowds outside, public urination, vomiting, fights, and sanitation issues. The NYPD has responded to around 200 911 calls, 120 311 calls, and 32 complaints to the precinct, and has also made 7 arrests at the premises. And the second piece is that limited progress has been made on resolving these concerns. So the applicant entered into 2 separate affidavits with Community Board 5, but has violated the terms of those agreements and was the only operator to not attend a June 2024 meeting convened by the Mayor's Office of Nightlife for establishments on 20th and 21st Streets. So we request that the State Liquor Authority initiate a formal enforcement proceeding against the licensee. And part of that will involve review and compliance with prior stipulation agreements. And then we ask that they take appropriate action from there. So this passed a committee with all in favor, 15-0-0-0.
Any conflicts? Any questions? Zool.
Yeah, Seth, can you explain how the NYPD does or doesn't have any connection with the SLA closing?
In this case, the NYPD, they have regular meetings, with the communities around it. So the way that it's factored into this is that they've had these meetings and had less engagement from Boxers than they've had from other licensees in the block. So there's some that come regularly to these and sort of try to work to engage with the community and resolve the issues, but this is one that is not. So NYPD, yeah, they're really hosting these community meetings in certain cases where there's issues.
Christopher.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. One is, what were the arrests for? Question number 1. And question number 2, the 911 versus 311 calls. What do you know about the overlap?
Yeah, so on the first one, unfortunately, I don't have that information, but I can definitely get it. And then the second piece, I think the discrepancy here, it's kind of unusual, I think, to have more 911 calls than 311. The discrepancy is that it's hard to tie 311 complaints specifically to a particular venue. So it might be that there's many complaints on the street that they're on, but we wouldn't necessarily be able to link it to this venue specifically.
Can I just answer or?
Yeah.
It is also the case that when you call 911, they ask, is this an emergency? And if you say yes, they have to accept that answer. So you take that as you will.
Any other questions? Okay. Comments? Todd with 1D.
Yes, 1D. So you heard what Seth has to say. Now, the SLAP committee down through the years has reserved its heavy fire, as indicated in this letter, for only the most egregious situations. So this is one, but we must all remember that this has been part of a continuing problem. You're going to hear when Seth goes on into the next resolution that it's a constant process for Community Board 5 to balance the equities and try to find and bring together responsible operators and people in the community. But what I would say is that I did due diligence for Boxers a number of years ago, and you can see by the fact that they don't show up at the police community meetings that there's something going on there. And it's a travesty that the SLA acted before we even had a chance to weigh in on it. So I do believe, the SLAP committee is well known to have an even-tempered and fair balancing of the equities for establishments and people in the community. But I just hope that the SLA and the enforcement authorities, you know, really get their act together and move in this. You heard what was said online today by some of our residents, and, you know, this is an issue.
Thank you, Todd. Other comments? Next one, Steph.
Great, thank you. Our second item was a much less controversial application for a new liquor license
Sorry.
for Haza.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it, Christopher. Go ahead.
Is it okay? I apologize for.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to raise concerns not only about the conclusions regarding Boxers, but about the process that was used to reach these conclusions. First, the March 17th record appears to be one-sided. The committee did meet with the operator, but beyond that, the perspectives that were presented were overwhelmingly those of nearby residents, and there's little indication that input was sought from the broader public that uses the venue, such as patrons, workers, renters, or LGBTQ community members, which leaves an incomplete picture of the establishment's role in the situation. Public testimony also reflected an agenda that bordered on hostility. One speaker said, quote, "I think Boxers is a horrible bar with horrible people going there. They don't give a damn about the community," end quote. Another noted that Boxers was one of the main reasons why we created the 21st Street Block Association, suggesting an organized campaign. We also heard just now someone saying they wanted to upgrade the neighborhood. This raises concerns that one segment of the neighborhood is being treated as the community, when in reality it's much more diverse. The second problem is the evidence here is muddled. The discussion cites 311 calls, 911 calls, arrests, and complaints, while acknowledging uncertainty about their source and attribution. There is no account for overlap or duplication. Most concerning, during the meeting, a shooting was raised and then acknowledged to have nothing to do with Boxers, not to be connected to it in any way, and yet it has remained part of the narrative for many years. That kind of associative blame is uncalled for and unfair. Third, the current framing risks drifting from enforcement into opposition to nightlife itself. It was pointed out in the meeting quite correctly that this is a mixed-use, commercially zoned area where late-night venues are permitted. The question is not whether some residents prefer a quiet street, but whether the operator itself violated enforceable conditions based on clear evidence. Where there have been violations of our signed affidavits, there should certainly be consequences, but only when supported by specific, substantiated findings that attribute to the operator and not from some general frustration with nightlife. Finally, Boxers is a long-standing queer venue. Before advancing serious enforcement recommendations, the committee should ensure that it is not allowing a narrow, organized group of residents to outweigh the broader public that uses and values spaces like this. In short, as it deals with Boxers and similar venues, the committee should always ground its analysis in clear, attributable evidence, distinguish block-level conditions from operator-specific violations, ensure a balanced input from all constituencies, preferably through public meetings, and avoid conflating lawful nightlife with non-compliance. Anything less risks undermining fairness and credibility.
Thank you, Christopher. Mike.
I was wondering if anyone from Boxers happens to be attending this meeting virtually or in person. Interesting.
Joel.
Yeah, I think much of what Christopher has talked about is important because there are sometimes in a particular community, folks who oppose another segment of that community. So that it takes into consideration. But as Seth pointed out, NYPD, the precinct, holds regular community meetings, and they held some around this issue, and apparently Boxers did not appear at those, nor have they appeared here. So I think that's this is difficult, and I think we have to think of the committee considered very carefully this rather extreme measure.
Catherine.
Yeah, I just want to add some context. I wasn't going to exactly bring this up, but one of the challenges here is to understand the process. When you look closely at the public record that Boxers has with SLA, there aren't complaints. If the complaints continue to go to 911, NYPD, you do not get action. You do have, SLA has mechanisms to file complaints. There is also another, everything I'm telling you, you can see in public records. There are also other bars in the vicinity that have had more than 20-fold the number of fines. You don't even see a record of fines and violations, which made it so, and from my view, that the SLA grant renewed the license. There are no violations on file. There are all these complaints, but they're not going where they should go. And so you can have the meetings, but I have watched neighbors when they're upset with or they disagree with the establishment, go to SLA. We try to make ourselves available at CB5 as a place to facilitate community engagement for this very reason, because the capacity of the SLA to actually hear and to move in terms of enforcement is very limited, given the number of establishments in our city alone. So again, I'm gonna say you have to look very carefully. From my understanding, if the SLA reaches out to NYPD for reporting, they get reporting, but it does not work the other way around for a lot of legislative reasons, a lot of regulatory reasons. So I really want to caution people about the process by which we're engaging establishments. We look for good, we look for community input because that's what we're charged to do. But there is a process to engage the SLA if you want, and it must be, it's clear. And it's not there. The evidence is not there in the SLA record. The last time I checked and you can check for yourselves. It's publicly available information.
Thank you, Catherine. Kevin.
I have 2 points to make. The first is to what Zool was talking about with the management attending the police meetings. I think that is probably true long-term, but the day that I visited the bar, they were coming from, in fact, a police meeting. So I cannot sit in good conscience and say to you, they don't go to them, because they did in fact go that day. The second is, I intend to vote for the resolution, but I think it's very fair to point out that this is a unique situation. The patrons that go to Boxers are not the kinds of patrons that live in the neighborhood. It's racialized, it's economic, and it is unfortunate. The people who live there definitely have a legitimate beef, about noise, about, how the bar is conducted in some ways. But it is a mixed-use zone. And it is a place where nightlife is allowed. Late bars are allowed. And everyone who lives there knew that when they moved there. So, there is that as well. I'm gonna vote for the resolution, but I don't necessarily believe that all of the grievances that the community have aired are completely legitimate.
I see your hand back up, Christopher. Any other comments? Okay, go ahead, Christopher.
Thanks. I do think it's fundamentally unfair of us as a board to have a discussion that says there are many other clubs on the street or venues on the street that have received potentially more violations, and yet have the rhetoric of Boxers is the worst. Because I think the problem that's happening here is we get a very organized group that comes back and says whichever club or bar or whatever on their street that happens to be up for renewal or something like this, that becomes the worst thing ever. And we've had this happen before. This is not a unique situation in the sense that that's how this street has been presented to us many, many, many times, regardless of it's always, this is the worst one, these are the worst complaints. And I think there is a little bit of crying wolf. On the also, like further with that, like as a community board, like what our role is definitely to facilitate the kind of meetings that we did not see happen, like public meetings with the community board, with the community, not just homeowners. I don't think it's our job as a community board to mediate between bar owners and homeowners, right? That framing is not fair or right. And so I think that that is another big problem that we're facing here, and maybe the SLAP committee is facing in general. I really think that we should have a community-based, like constituent first approach of like who is using the bar, who who is in the neighborhood values the things that are being used, in addition to the other voices. But when it's just posed as homeowners versus bar owners, I think we're talking over the heads of the people we're supposed to be representing.
Thank you, Christopher. Charlie.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think I'm planning to vote against this letter. Went into this with kind of an open mind, but I definitely take issue with the comment that was said by a member of the public at the start of the meeting. Said something to the effect of like, these clubs don't belong in this neighborhood, they belong on the West Side Highway. I mean, that's a dog whistle. That's pretty absurd. And I'm a lifelong resident of this neighborhood. I think the idea that clubs or nightlife somehow don't belong in Midtown is kind of absurd, like Midtown. Yeah, so I'm planning to vote against this.
Thank you. Todd.
So I just want to take issue with my distinguished colleague, just based on my own experience. The SLAP committee, in my time on it, nothing has been more important than having community meetings and pulling together the establishments applying for the licenses and the people in the community, right? So that is our job, right? And that is something we do. And if it's done well, it leads to affidavits and, a well-established process where we have common stipulations that are enforceable. In the case of boxers, they've gone through that process and it just hasn't worked. And I think, as Catherine said, there's enough information in the record for us to take this very strong position, which we only do in as I said before, in the most extreme cases.
Thank you, Todd. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm going to abstain from this vote. I don't feel that I have enough information here. I think there have been very good comments made here from members of the board as well as from the committee, and I highly respect the work that the committee has done. But I don't know where I stand with this. I'd like to hear more about what's happened at the precinct community council. And I think that it's really important to have strong regard, since we do, that this neighborhood has been designated as a nightlife center, that we have respect for that as well. So I'm going to abstain on this vote.
Okay. Thank you. I'll take this opportunity to exercise my own privilege, which is an abstention is absolutely everyone's right to make, but I just would want to caution you all that an abstention essentially functions as a no on a vote. And that we are all brought to this community board not to have the answers, but to try to put forward sort of our best guess for all of these. So I would urge you all to take a position if possible. But again, it is your right if you would like to vote to abstain. I'm going to go back to Catherine or Kevin.
So I wanted to just clarify first. So first, when I made the comment about, basically what I took a look at was the number of violations in the proximity to boxers, because with the level of community outrage, it doesn't quite line up. So my sense is that, and there isn't on record with SLA what we're hearing tonight. What is on record and one part we did not discuss that I think weighs heavily is that Boxers has a stipulation agreement that they signed with Community Board 5, and they have not lived out that agreement. And that is why we find ourselves here. They have not lived out the agreement that is on record. So how do we go forward with another agreement if they have not lived out the agreement and we've had no space? Given the fact that COVID and a lot of other things have happened, we've had no time and space to have perhaps have some of the ongoing meetings that might have taken place. But I think one of the heaviest parts is that there is a stipulation agreement on record that has not been adhered to.
Thank you, Catherine. Kevin.
I'm just going to echo quickly what Catherine just said. I think that it's important to keep in mind the fact of the credibility of the community board itself, we have these stipulation affidavits that Boxers has signed with us. Both of them have been violated. So in my mind, at least, this is pretty cut and dry to vote in favor of this resolution. I think that what members of the public have said is kind of irrelevant. We have this clear document in front of us. So I plan on voting in favor.
Thank you, Kevin. Robert?
Yeah, just very briefly, I like some other members who went into this with an open mind. And I take very seriously some of the comments that have been made around the importance of balancing different uses in this neighborhood. I give relatively little weight to some of the comments that were made by members of the public, and I reacted, I think, in a similar way to some other members of the board to some of them. That being said, for me, what's decisive, and I think I'm going to vote yes, subject to some final comments here, is that the committee approved this unanimously, and that's 15 serious members of the board who looked at this, several people who went there, the establishment in person. I don't feel that I have a basis to go against that recommendation. So I'm going to vote in support.
Thank you, Robert. Good.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote in favor of this, and I do appreciate all the comments that were made, and I do think that we should consider how we can get participation of greater participation beyond the active tenants groups on the block or in the neighborhood. But we've tried and people don't show up. So how do we reach the people who actually go to these clubs? How do we get Boxers to show up and participate? So we have to think about that, but I'm going to vote in favor of this. And especially because the SLA issued the renewal without considering SLAP CB5's input.
Thank you, Nancy.
I'm troubled by the fact that members feel they don't have enough information. We changed our schedule of meetings so that board members had an extra week to look over all of the draft resos that the committees have prepared and opportunities to look at all of the tape recordings on YouTube that are available to give information. And so I believe that it's on the individual board members to reach out to Seth or to me or to any committee chair if they have a question that they feel they don't have enough information before this meeting. We changed our entire schedule so this wouldn't happen. So I'm really troubled by that.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else? I see your hands back up, Christopher. You have spoken twice. If you could keep this very brief.
Oh, thank you. So I think there's no record of this with the SLA. That's something that I think is a pretty damning thing for ICE. It makes sense that we might want to alert them to certain things, but again, having watched the video, which I did the entire meeting, and noticing that 911, 311 calls were kind of conflated and overlapping, that there's a lot of drama around this and very little substantial particular and specific evidence, that again, it seems very, very unfair to do something as drastic as this. Another kind of major thing that's happening now is we're being told that they're violating their affidavit. The only violation that was mentioned at the meeting, and again, like Kevin did a great job interviewing them, and I'm sorry, the member did a great job interviewing the patron, the bar, and saw like what they do. The only violation was a half an hour difference in closing time. That was the only thing that could be pointed to. A relatively minor violation for us to be as kind of worked up as we are as a board about this particular establishment or what they're doing. I think it's not fair to say like a slight violation like that of the affidavit goes to such an extreme level. I do agree there should be consequences. I agree we should talk to them about it, but this is going too far in an unfair manner. It's unsubstantiated.
Thank you, Christopher. Any other comments? Okay, now you can go to the next one.
Thank you. And I'll just quickly, just to close out that comment, I appreciate everyone wrestling with sort of the complexities in that neighborhood. It's hard giving the mix of residential and commercial. It's led to a lot of complaints, but also the businesses have a have their right to be there in some cases. So the affidavit, I want to say, the affidavit doesn't say that nightlife doesn't belong in the neighborhood, just so everybody is clear on that. That's something we really weigh for each application. And we don't usually do this, what we're doing now. So it does say that we emphasize, an enforcement action, but it's not recommending how that should end, so it's really hoping that they can find an agreement that will make everybody happy. Okay, so with that, I will go to the last one. We have Baza, which was a lot less controversial, as I said. It'll operate at 251 West 30th Street, which is just south of Penn Station. So Gabby took the lead here and successfully negotiated an affidavit, which was acceptable both to the committee and to the applicant. We voted to approve the affidavit as written, with the applicant agreeing to our standard method of operation stipulations and a closing time of 2 a.m. each day. This passed at committee with 15-000.
Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Comments? Okay. Much easier second one. Thank you, Seth.
So thank you.
Okay, David, you're up. Transportation.
I'm David Sigmund. I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee. We have one resolution up tonight, to be deemed read. We're leaving some of the information. So we were approached by DOT to review the installation of temporary materials in the area around Pulitzer Plaza, which to orient you on this, north is to the right and west is up on the slide, and that is the Plaza Hotel. This is part of the circulation around the two plazas. 59th Street separates Grand Army Plaza from Pulitzer Plaza. And the proposal here, as part of the preparations for the World Cup, is to install, I'll show you one. To install seating areas along the edge of the space in order to create some separation between traffic that might be going by on 58th, whatever this is called, and 59th Street. So that's the primary push here. Some issues that were raised were the presence of this city bike dock, which used to be located in this area, was relocated here on the south side of Grand Army Plaza, the north side of 59th Street, because Pulitzer Plaza was just renovated. So that was kind of the core of the discussion. It got a little more complicated because Fifth Avenue Association is the concessionaire for these public areas. That's the bid. Just like the other piece that we'll be talking about in land use with Flatiron, Nomad, and the Broadway area. Here, Fifth Avenue Association will be operating this space, and the Central Park Conservancy did the renovation work on Grand Army Plaza and Pulitzer Plaza. So there were some interactions between the three parties over what the best solution was. And at the end, as reflected in the resolution, by the end of the discussion with the committee, we were pushing DOT to get back to us on a specific time frame to deal with the city bike dock. The temporary seating area work is going to move forward right away in order to get it done before the World Cup tournament, and there's going to be, further exploration of other locations that the bike dock could go to, but that won't be resolved in time for the temporary installation. So that's the guts of the resolution, and thanks to Alice for writing her first resolution for the board.
Right, thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Kevin.
Just speak up on behalf of the Landmarks Committee. It's this whole area, the Pulitzer, Grand Army Plaza, both the north and south side are technically a scenic landmark in the city. And so the issue with the red city bike dock is that it actually sits on top of a scenic landmark. And technically it's temporary, it's there temporarily, so it doesn't fall under the purview of either Landmark Preservation Commission or the Public Design Board, whatever it might be called. So part of this resolution is to get them to commit to a specific timeline when to make a decision on that. Because they're not subject to having to move it, even though it sits on a landmark technically.
Thank you, Kevin. Nancy?
I had concern about the location of the existing location of the bike station because you enter from both the north side and the south side of the bike station, meaning that the area that is shown in tan will be filled with people riding their bikes to the bike station to deposit them, which will make it very dangerous for pedestrians. If you have ever been in the area of a bike station in the city, you know that bike riders ride their bike right up to the station, which is what I would do. But there's a real conflict there between pedestrian safety and pedestrians being hit by bikers that are bringing their bikes to the bike station. So I'm very concerned about that. So I think it's important that the bike station be relocated.
Thank you, Nancy. Joel?
Yeah, I think the question of the bike station is crucial. It really is a threat to pedestrian safety. But also, the Fifth Avenue Committee has a great interest in making quite a financial commitment to bespoke, to use the term, chairs and tables. And there are quite a few benches in that area. And I think many of us are really much more interested in, if they're going to make a significant financial commitment, it be to a public outdoor restroom.
Thank you, Joel. Robert?
So I agree with the resolved clauses of this resolution, but I struggle personally with the whereas clause at the bottom of page 7 of the materials that was circulated, which says that the committee expressed concerns about incompatibility of the docking station with the plaza's landmark designation and purportedly creating ongoing conflict and danger with pedestrians. I know that some members of the committee feel that way, and that's I think a legitimate point of view. But I don't believe that this language necessarily reflects anything close to a consensus view on the committee, let alone the board, and I'm not very comfortable with it.
Garland?
Yeah, I'd actually like to echo those comments. I voted for this at committee. I'll vote for this again here because ultimately this resolution is about DOT's proposal, and I find DOT's proposal to be reasonable. But I can't say the same about the whereas clauses here. I disagree with them. We had a guest from the Central Park Conservancy at the committee meeting who said that the city bike station was a very modern intrusion that really does a lot to interfere with the sight lines. I mean, look at the map. There's cars, there's trucks right next to the city bike station. If you have an issue with bike share, form of public transportation, but you don't have an issue with a street with an incredible amount of traffic on it right next to it, both of those things are between these two landmarks. And if you have an issue with one and not the other, I don't understand how that's possible. This, city bike station gets an incredible amount of use. I, like many others in New York City, when I'm not taking the subway, I get around by city bike. The station saw more than 1,000 uses in a single day last July. We have the World Cup coming this summer. I'm sure the city bike numbers all across the city, and particularly in Manhattan, are going to skyrocket. And I take issue with what I kind of found to be a full court press against the location of a single bike share station, which to my mind actually has nothing to do with the proposal being considered.
Thank you. Any other comments? David?
Yeah, look, to respond to some of this, there were kind of two pieces. The reason why I led with the discussion about the temporary space is because that's the immediate action. But it was clear that there will be other things going on in the area. And so we felt we wanted to weigh in on some of these longer term issues, which includes the relocation of the bike docks. There was no party in the room, though. DOT agreed that they need to be moved. They just didn't immediately have the answer on where it should be. CPC thinks it should be moved. Fifth Avenue Association thinks it should be moved. So I don't really know that it's much of a debate about whether it should be moved or not. It's really a question of where can it go and when would be the right time to do that. The same, thanks to Zool for mentioning the restroom issue. That's not something that's going to happen right away, but as part of the whole Fifth Avenue redesign, we've been calling and committee to accommodate restrooms in that as well. And so we put that marker down on this as a possible location, but it'll have to be studied when the Fifth Avenue redesign happens.
Thank you, David. Any other comments? Okay.
Okay.
On to the Penn Station.
On to Penn Station, yes. Okay, this was an actual Twitter post by some young guy who works for Amtrak, who runs their social media. Go for it, I agree. So what we wanted to do here, as Brad mentioned, and we'll get into what the timing of this is, but the Community Board 5 has taken positions on things related to Penn Station for the last, I think, 15 to 17 years. And so we wanted people to be aware of what those actions were. We're in the middle of a process that Amtrak is running now that will result in the selection of a private developer for what's now called the transformation of Penn Station. Amtrak will be taking the lead. We'll talk a little bit about what the components of that project are. And that answer could be public as soon as the end of May, sometime in June, at which point Transportation Committee and then the board will be looking at what is this proposal, what's in it, and what do we think of it. And the background, the issues are voluminous and complicated. And so we thought we would kind of break it into a digestible series of pieces. And this is the first of three. So the idea is to take everybody on the board through what all the components of this thing are, what the issues in the past have been, what actions we've taken. When we see, what this proposal looks like, we'll be weighing in on, does it meet the needs of the community, the needs the board has identified in the past, and then any comments you have on the proposal itself. So we're going to be doing this probably, as I said, in 3 separate sessions. And timing's an issue because of our hiatus over the summer. So we're doing this a little early. I don't think we expect to see the results of this until maybe for another 60 to 90 days, but we figured now was a good time to get everybody up to speed before that happens. Okay, thanks. So here's the agenda. There are, as I mentioned, a number of precursors to this Penn Transformation Project effort. We'll talk about the state development plan that was mentioned earlier tonight. Midtown South was related to, it's in the Penn Station area, and it's related to work that the community board and a task force had done around the zoning in the area of Penn Station. And there are also a whole series of prior Penn Station capital programs that have been rolled up into the transformation project. So we'll give you some background on that. Then, as I mentioned, there's a developer RFP process that we're in the middle of. We'll show you what that timeline is, explain what the elements of the transformation project itself is, who are the teams that are going through the process, what is the nature of the concession that's going to be granted to one of these developers. And then we have a summary. This is now in a few different forms, including the one that was handed out tonight. But what prior actions did committees take? And what issues have we identified as a board that, will or won't be addressed in the developer proposal. Because a number of the things we're concerned about aren't even in the scope of the RFP.
David, could you speak into the mic for people online? Thank you.
Okay, so here's the first piece of the background, precursor project, the general project plan that was run through Empire State Development with the participation of Vornado, and I'll love this thing. It's broken up into 8 sites. 1, 2, and 3. We'll talk more about what's going on in these blocks. But then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are all under Vornado ownership. And I've opened this. This is Vornado. It's 4 through 8, and PX is Penn Expansion is 1, 2, and 3. So as it was mentioned, so this is a view of what that is. Everything in blue is office space, and the things that are in orange, some of it's hotel. Oh, sorry. Some of it's hotel and some of it's residential, but there were only 500 residential units. So this is what was approved, went through an EIS and was approved through this Empire State Development process. Vornado themselves is sort of somewhat on record as saying that they would love to see more residential in here. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
All right.
So the other piece of this, whoops, is everything in orange is the Gateway project. So that's the thing that's building a new tunnel under the Hudson River and running tracks through that, and then connecting to the possibility of an expanded Penn Station in this area. By running the extra tracks, New Jersey Transit is talking about doubling their peak hour, going from 24 trains during the peak hour and the rush hour to 48 trains, adding all sorts of service, increasing service frequency, really addressing the demand of all the people that can't find housing in New York who live in New Jersey and commute into New York. So the question of, what really is this? And, do you need to do all of this to accommodate that traffic is being studied as part of this. And that's what you see here are areas that would have to be demolished in order to accommodate this. And we'll talk a little bit more about what's on these blocks. But in the past, we've taken the position that this block 780 should not be demolished. So this is the Midtown South rezoning that we just did in land use last summer. And I've overlain it after spending 25 minutes with Claude on can you combine these two maps, and it didn't work. I just did it myself and it took 5 minutes. So this is the outer study boundary that we did. So we did this thing called Penn CLIP, the Penn Community-Led Improvement Program project. And so we identified a larger study area. It actually goes over this way. This is 8th Avenue, so this is the end of our jurisdiction. And then there was a smaller study area in the center of the donut, which is around Penn Station, which is here. And while we were sort of getting our act together on that, out came the Midtown South Mixed Use District, which really kind of dealt with the bulk of the issues that we were concerned about. There are still some interstitial areas that we may choose at some point in the future to go back and take a look at, but it's not super high on the priority list right now. So this is all of the kind of pre-2025 projects. What ended up happening was that, as you can see here, like different parts of the different agencies were responsible for different parts of this project. And the feds jumped in and said, we're going to federalize this. We're going to put it all under Amtrak. Amtrak owns the Penn Station facility in the first place. And a lot of this was being sort of geared around Gateway, which has a big Amtrak component as well, although it has an independent board that has New York, New Jersey, and Amtrak representatives on it. So you've got Gateway, which is like $16 billion. One part of that is this Hudson Tunnel, which, if you go down to the river, You'll see that there's sinking sections of this thing on a regular basis. Then there's Penn expansion that we just talked about, which maybe some of it can be accommodated in the footprint of the existing, but some of it may have to go someplace else. Then, and that was a New Jersey Transit program. And then MTA was taking the lead on what was going to change in all the corridors. And what you see here was the MTA proposal on extending and widening the public corridors in the main part of Penn Station, because most of that traffic is MTA traffic. And then the last piece of it, which is bringing trains from the Metro North lines to 4 new stations in the Bronx, and then running it along the same sort of the Amtrak right of way and into Penn Station. It doesn't connect Grand Central, which was a dream for a long time. It really follows Amtrak's Boston service, you know, up to the main line. But it does add 4 stations, and these areas were rezoned a couple of years ago to accommodate that work. There's a lot of back and forth between Amtrak and MTA over getting this work done because it's Amtrak's right away. They have trains that go through there. And so that project is significantly behind schedule. So Penn transformation essentially wraps all of those things together into one big package. There was an announcement last summer with the Secretary of Transportation, US Secretary of Transportation, and they laid out this timeline to accelerate approval of the project. So this is when the announcement was made, a notice was given that there would be a solicitation for a master developer. There were a couple of meetings in the fall with potential bidders. So that sort of led to a group of, you know, you'll see engineering firms, design firms, developers, you name it, who got together and formed teams to submit, you know, into the process. The RFP was issued, I don't know that they actually hit this date, but it was issued late in the fall. And the timeline is that the bidders have to submit their package by May, and a selection would be made soon after that. Amtrak was taking the position early on. Andy Byford, the train daddy, is the rep is the Amtrak rep for this. And so he was taking the position at the first public meetings that absolutely the Amtrak board will absolutely be making the absolute decision on this. And within a couple of weeks that folded to this will absolutely be going back to the White House for them to make the decision. So, you know, is this decision going to get made in the original timeframe? You know, we'll have to see what happens. And then once that happens, you first have to go through NEPA, which is, you know, the environmental impact statement process for federal projects. And the goal is, you know, interestingly, to get this started, a shovel in the ground by the end of 2027. And what you see under here are the 5 goals of the project that were shared with the potential developers. The existing station does not meet fire codes. It doesn't exhaust potential, you know, smoke fast enough. There's not enough vertical circulation to get people on and off platforms in the event of an emergency. It was really designed for a level of traffic that's probably a third of what it sees today. So that was a big one, and related to, you know, really, quite frankly, to all of this. The passenger growth piece is what I talked about before. New Jersey Transit has the opportunity to double their service into the Penn Station complex. And so we, you know, you've got to figure out where that growth goes, and then to just generally improve the experience, which, you know, I guess the new Long Island Railroad concourse, if you've been down there, sort of sets the bar for what can happen. But that was a very expensive and long process to develop it. So there ended up being 3 different teams. There all led by international infrastructure development firms. So Grand Penn Partners Macquarie is an Australian investment bank that has a big presence in US infrastructure, toll roads, bridges. And they Foster and Partners with their architect and a Boston-based contractor, Suffolk. And this is the design. So Grand Penn was an existing design that had been publicized. And it's, you know, it's one of the ones that sort of picks up on the whole, everything should be classical theme. And we should reproduce what the old station looked like, you know, before it was demolished. So this is the proposal that had been kind of mooted before this team was formed. So I have no idea what's going to actually get proposed, but that's an actual image. And those are actual columns all the way across the actual front of the thing. So it definitely responds to a federal priority for classical architecture in public buildings. So the next team is Fengate. I'm not sure where they're from, but they have a they're an out of U.S. firm. Also big infrastructure component. Ulico is Union Labor Life. It's a bank, life insurance company that's related to union labor, hence the name. And Tudor Perini is the contractor, and then you have Skidmore, Owings and Merrill and Grimshaw as the architects. This is not, we don't know what their proposal looks like, but this is actually a proposal that SOM had published a number of years ago as a new Madison Square Garden Penn Station complex with office and residential towers in the corners and the new stadium and a park underneath it. I doubt that this is what the, you know, final thing is going to look like, but that's a heck of an image to put up in a presentation. So that's what I did. Palomar. So Palomar is a New York-based contracting firm, civil contracting. So roads, they do a lot of work with the MTA. And they actually had started a process through CB5 a couple of years ago when MTA was taking the lead on Penn reconstruction. And Halmar came and said, no, we think there's a private alternative. They studied it pretty extensively. They had actually done pricing and an initial set of plans. They'd met with Madison Square Garden to talk about buying the, whatever it's called now, Hulu, Paramount, Felt Forum, and making that an 8th Avenue entrance to the new facility. You know, Madison Square Garden gets reclad. So they've had a pretty significant head start over the other teams, having studied this for a while. Halmar is now owned by an Italian infrastructure firm. So it's a pretty significant group. I was pleasantly surprised at the quality of the bidders, you know, given the kind of short timeframes. So as I said, there's a couple of different versions of this, but we actually went through, you know, this is date ordered on everything that CB5 has passed that's Penn related. And, you know, a big part of it is Madison Square Garden. What role does Madison Square Garden play in the recreation of Penn Station? There have been alternative proposals. An architect, Vishan Chakrabarty, had developed a proposal. I'll show you on a map in a second, but it's to the blocks just across 7th Avenue from the existing Penn Station, most of which is controlled by Vornado. We can scroll to the next. This relates to the general project plan. This was the original scoping back in 2020 for the general project plan. And so land use has taken positions multiple times on that, on MSG. This was the kind of the next step. This was the scope, but then this was the draft environmental impact statement comments. Okay. Yeah, this was an interesting one that kind of out of the blue, the State Historic Preservation Office took the position that Penn Station could be landmarked And it was done for a number of technical reasons, but nobody else really agreed with that. And so the city has taken the position that, no, it can't and won't, and that it would hold up any redevelopment of the station if that were to happen. So that's where that sits. Transportation Committee again looked at this question of Penn expansion and sort of tried to set a basis for how that should be reviewed, who gets impacted by this thing and who benefits from it. We also reacted to the general project plan. Okay. This was the Penn clip that we just talked about, community-led zoning framework. Penn Station funding, we'll go into that a little bit, but the general project plan, all of those office buildings were intended to generate tax revenues that could then be steered to Penn Station to support bonds that would pay for the construction. So I think there was an estimate at one point that something like $7 to $9 billion worth of costs could be covered by those taxes. But because, you know, that timeline for development of those buildings has really changed post-COVID, you know, it's not clear. And the Governor Hochul, stepped in and delinked these things almost as soon as it happened. So this question of, you know, are we going to wait around for office buildings to be built in order to pay taxes to help cover the cost of the project? That's not really the discussion anymore. MSG came up again. So the first time it was done was 2013. They were given a 10-year permit. The standard, I think, well, it started at what, 50 years. And then in 2013, it became 10 years. Then in 2023, when it came up again, it became 5 years. So in theory, in April of 2028, something like that, if no steps have been taken to relocate it, their special permit to operate an arena larger than 2,500 seats would go away, and they would have to shut down. Now, does anybody expect that to happen? I mean, not realistically. It's just going to end up in a lawsuit on what this really means and can you close an operating business. And honestly, I was one of the people that argued for continuing to shrink the timeframes in the hope that maybe something would happen, and really nothing has happened. I don't know of any actual concrete steps that have been taken by MSG to relocate, and we'll talk later that actually some of their alternatives have gone away during this period of time. Yeah, this was an interesting one. Were you at SLAP at the time? So MSG came to us for renewal of the liquor license for the garden itself. And it became a discussion really of things like facial recognition and the fact that all the resources that in really policing around Penn Station and the garden are the garden themselves only police inside their facility. And so we're relying on NYPD and others to police what's going on outside. And, you know, everybody that's inside has to go outside. So there were a whole bunch of community concerns, public urination, things like that. And so MSG said that they would take that on, but that they would not do enforcement outside and couldn't do enforcement outside of their property lines. And this last piece is part of all the improvements on 33rd Street, the north side of the garden, in between Penn 1 and Penn 2. So when 33rd Street was refinished, there's also now a plan to install a pedestrian bridge that runs between those two office buildings. I'm not aware of anything actually happening with that right now. So the next few slides are, you know, kind of like, what are our issues that we know for the most part are not going to be addressed by the RFP? And the first one is this whole question of relocating Madison Square Garden. It is not part of the RFP. And the expectation really is that there's not enough time to negotiate some relocation and make that part of your proposal. So even things like Grand Penn, where it's based on relocating it, and builds a park in the footprint of Madison Square Garden, that's, that's not necessarily a realistic proposal. So, we'll have to see what they actually propose. So this is a diagram, and all of these little yellow dots are I think almost 1,000 columns, and here's a blow up of it, that sit in the middle of the platforms of Penn Station in order to support the loads of Madison Square Garden. So there's no question, and if you've ever commuted on the Long Island Railroad, there's no question that there's a huge impact of the garden on the layout of the tracks and platforms, and that if you wanted to change that, you would have to deal with all of those loads that go all the way down to grade, through these. So it's a huge issue. This is the Chakrabarty alternative proposal. So here's Penn 1, here's Madison Square Garden. So this is actually on the east side of 7th Avenue. It's where Hotel Penn used to be and the merchandise mart that's behind it. And it's also the entire block between 33rd and 34th Street. So this is 2 full square blocks, just like the super block is that Madison Square Garden sits on today. So you would have to acquire all of the properties that are owned by others. And, the floor area ratio of these buildings was extremely high, and it combined a lot of different uses. In some ways, it was similar to the SOM proposal I showed you before. Buried in here is a new Madison Square Garden, and then each of the corners is an office building or a residential building. So that was an alternative. Anyway, not in the scope of the RFP. So it's a concern of ours that won't come up. The big thing, and we've talked about our neighbor to the west, CB4, is that the public realm component of this project is also not in the RFP. And Amtrak took a pretty clear view that the only thing they're talking about is what's going on in the 4 walls of the existing complex. And they gave bidders the option of if they control sites or could control sites outside of that, they can propose other uses, but that's not the core of the RFP. What I'm showing you here, though, is at the time that the general project plan was done, there was a huge amount of work. CB5 participated in the working group that oversaw this process. There's a huge amount of work to pull together the public realm requirements around Penn Station, and this plan is kind of the summary of all of that. So it's pedestrianization of 33rd Street all the way across, 32nd Street leading to the station, and 31st Street all the way across. These are new bike lanes, new access. This is the yellow is providing new access to the garden, because if you've been by there are trucks that park there all the time, television trucks that impede traffic and pedestrian traffic. So the idea was to relay out, how those flows work, to bring all of the crosswalks to grade, and then all new signage. Oh, and here as well, connecting to Moynihan Station, and then all new signage and really creating, a zone for all of this. None of this is in the RFP. There is money. Whoops. The Governor Hochul allocated about $50 million at the time this plan was created. I mean, in theory, I guess that still exists. And Amtrak's taken the position that they're happy to talk to the state and the city about how they're going to fund this work and how to coordinate it with construction of the Penn transformation. Because what we don't want to have happen is you spend years doing this, but you never do this. And then you come back later and you dig up all the public realm after the station is done, which is probably not out of the realm of possibility if it's not coordinated properly. Okay, so this is the Block 780 thing that we were talking about before. So I don't have it on here, but you have the gateway tracks coming in over this way, and they loop through here. And then there's the question of, are you building a expansion? I think this was going to be 9 tracks south of the existing Penn Station. And if you do that, you pretty much have to blow out everything that's here. And as a matter of fact, because of how the tracks lay out, you also blow out stuff that's on this side of Seventh Avenue as well. Most of what's here on the north side, you've got this office building, which CB5 has an indirect connection with in its history. This is a church, Catholic church. This was a building that's no longer used, that was sort of a modern design in addition to the church. This is a parking garage that goes all the way through. This is an interesting building because it was part of the original Penn Station. It was a services building, so steam and electricity and all of that went through this building into Penn Station. So that's a McKim, Mead, and White. I don't think it's landmarked though, because it's owned by Amtrak. So that's the issue. And then there's a number of commercial projects. So the kind of what's on the north side differs pretty dramatically from what's on the south side, because the south side has a number of apartment buildings and a lot of offices. There's kind of a historic recording studio in the middle of the block. So there were kind of more community concerns raised about the south side than there was about the north side, with the exception of the McKim, Mead, White building. Oh, so the other, before you go off this, the way that they're studying, can you expand service here without taking this, and you'll hear this concept a lot, is what's called through running. So what exists today is that trains come in from New Jersey, and or I should say from Long Island over this way, and they stop, and then they don't load up necessarily. A lot of times they sit for a long time in the station before they leave. If you're a New Jersey train, you come in from the west, you pull up here, you empty out, and then you leave empty and you go to Sunnyside Yards in Queens. And if you're a Long Island Railroad train, you come in from the Queens side, you sit here, and then when you leave, you go out to the West Side Rail Yards. So what through running says is, well, why can't I take a train from Newark to Mineola by passing through Penn Station, so that we can get faster service, more connection regionally through. So it's a real issue. It's been addressed in new train stations all over the world. I do think Amtrak had some real technical responses to what would or wouldn't work about that. It's also not clear, like, how much of this do you need? Do you need the whole thing to be through running to accommodate the 48 trains an hour? Who really wants to go from Newark to Mineola? What are these pairs of sources and destinations that are going to drive the need for this? So all of that is now being studied by the Federal Railroad Administration, and they're supposed to opine kind of in two steps, like a conceptual answer on, can it be accommodated just here, or do you need to look here? And then a deeper look at the same issue. Okay. So this is what Assemblymember Simone was just talking about. So after it became clear, and after Vornado announced that they weren't really going to be moving forward on the GPP, the General Project Plan, which was all office towers, Assemblymember Simone said, well, could we look at an alternative where we really amp up the residential component? Now, I'll say everything in red is still commercial office space, but residential is in yellow. So there's just a lot more of it. And just to orient you, here's Madison Square Garden, here's 2 Penn Plaza, 1 Penn Plaza, this is 7th Avenue. This site, Vornado controls, and it is talking already about doing a residential project. They also own where the McDonald's is, if you're all familiar with that. Lovely McDonald's at 8th Avenue and 34th Street. And so there's talk about doing a residential project, which is not part of the GPP. But yeah, so all of this and this is controlled by Vornado, and this stuff is controlled by others. And this is Block 780, which in the GPP plan has enormous office towers, and here they're not showing anything. So this was Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. And this, right, the green is a park.
Tony was mentioning about
Yep.
who wants a Bryant Park across the street from Madison Square Garden.
Right. And, as distinct from that Grand Penn proposal, which is basically you have a Penn station that sits here and then a park that sits here. So this is one where we've really, also been saying we want to push more housing in the area. Right now, there's no formal proposal. We know that Vornado is thinking of the same thing, but nobody's seen a proposal for changing the GPP. That would have to go back through the environmental impact statement process. I think that's it, right?
Wow.
Enough? Yeah, so again, some of the stuff we're going to revisit in the transportation committee. The goal of saying like, what lens are we going to apply to the proposal that presumably we'll see? I will say Amtrak is taking the position that they are the sole deciders on this thing. It's their facility. It's not subject to ULURP. They're happy to take community input, which is through this Penn SWAG, the Penn Station Working Advisory Group, which Community Board 5 and 4 and many other groups sit on. But the decision will be made by Amtrak. And, so the idea that we have a formal role in this is not, it doesn't exist. So I think this is more moral suasion and, steeping ourselves in these issues, which is why we wanted everybody to be aware of them. If our opinion is going to hold any sway, and then banding together with elected officials, who are like-minded on a lot of these issues. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. All right, I will open it up to questions. Sewell.
So appropriate, we're sitting in a college, Professor Sigmund. That was a most comprehensive lecture. Thank you so much. David, can you tell us anything more about Block 70? The south side is West 30th, often known as Music Street. There are a number of advocates who believe that should be a landmark block. And the question then goes into the issue of through running, as New Jersey Transit in the past had said that they needed this block. And then the argument is made that if this through running, it won't be in danger. So anything more that you could tell us about through
No,
running?
not really. I have to say the debate's been very binary. There's the people that are pro through running, 100% through running. And the people, particularly Amtrak has been saying they don't really see that as a component. There's a whole host of issues here. The train equipment that New Jersey Transit uses can't just run across into Long Island Railroad Zone because one uses AC power on a catenary that hangs in the air and the other uses DC power that sits in a, third rail on the ground. So either you're developing a piece of equipment that can do that. That's just one example. You need yards in different locations in order to run trains through. So Amtrak, paraded out all of the obvious technical barriers to doing this. They also compared, how it's been done internationally, and it's not what's being proposed here in terms of 100% through running for all of those technical reasons. If you go to Paris, there's kind of the RER that's local, but then you have TGV and the other long distance trains. So the idea that you're going to lump this all into, and the New York region is quite a bit bigger. So you can't take, the whole area of greater New York and say, we're going to serve this whole thing now. So the real issue here is, can you get from 24 to 48 trains? Otherwise you will have wasted money building a lovely tunnel underneath the Hudson. And can we fit that here through running or other efficiencies or operational efficiencies in the operation of Penn Station? And if you can't, does it go here? Are there other locations? How much of it goes there? You can build under 31st Street. That might solve part of the problem. You could stack, if you've been to the Long Island Railroad terminal in Grand Central, those are stacked. They were excavated out of the rock, which people are trying to avoid, the next time around.
So just to follow up, so David, so there could be a mix and match proposal?
Yes. I think at the end of the study, the idea is to say, here's the real train schedule, here's how we get 48, trains an hour in the place, and here's how we think, it needs to lay out to accommodate that and minimize impact in these areas.
Any other questions? Kevin?
Just a quick one. When you say that Amtrak is the ultimate decider, what happens here? How much of when we read in the press that, President Trump wants to get involved, how much influence does he have over Amtrak?
Total.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
White House
is he the ultimate decider? then?
Yeah, so that's what I said at the outset. We originally were told that the Amtrak board will make the decision. And then within a few weeks, it became clear that the White House is going to make the decision.
But Andy Byford is steering it, and that gives some of us some hope.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments? Todd?
So, David, thank you for this wonderful presentation. With all the turnover we had, this was sorely needed. Having sat through so many presentations and discussions and all the different aspects that you mentioned, one thing I would call attention to the community board is the issue of moving Madison Square Garden. So that was mentioned in passing. That issue is fraught because in order to really redo what I took out of all of the years of hearing these proposals and just reading all of the commentary, pro and con, is that the only way to really redo this and build a world-class Penn Station is to move Madison Square Garden. And Madison Square, and that has to do with one of the things that CB5 was instrumental in, which you touched on, which was, limiting the long-term lease on the space, cutting it. It was originally 50 years, then it was 10 years, then it was 5 years. All of that was done with the hope of somehow influencing or coming up with a formula to move Madison Square Garden. So the other issue associated with it is, the political issues about the ownership and of Madison Square Garden and their involvement in politics, and nobody wanting to gather the resources and money to pursue the public interest to get them to move. So that is a continuing issue. I'm sure that'll. When did you say that the 28th? So it's coming back to us again. So all of us on the board should educate ourselves on that issue and recognize that we do have influence. CB5, that was one of its singular accomplishments, is holding out hope that Madison Square Garden could be induced to move. Okay, so that.
You're on that slide. One more. Yeah, so the decision to move Madison Square Garden by itself is probably a 10-year decision, right? It's to find the location, to assemble it, to go through the environmental process and design process and everything else. And that would then say, okay, we spent 10 years, now we can start on Penn Station. So I think that's part of why everybody looked at it and said, these two things can't be done serially. The Halmar proposal, which is really the only one that any of us have seen that kind of thought through this. Where was that, if you want to? Sorry. Yeah. So as I mentioned, they proposed buying from MSG, old Felt Forum on 8th Avenue. And then this is all glass. It's a chance to really improve the experience down below, because Amtrak doesn't operate out of the, old Amtrak portion of the, they're talking about removing that floor and making that a double height space that would then connect to the footprint that the theater occupies now. So they were saying, you can get most of your cake by doing this and leave Madison Square Garden where it is. And in the event that somehow they move you could come back and try to address those areas in another phase. So that seemed like the most reasonable, and I'm not saying it's just theirs, all three of them could be saying it. But that seemed like the most reasonable way to deal with the issue and not wait a decade to start Penn Station.
Thank you for that observation, David. If I may, the other criticism that I noted over the years was, the idea that you have one of the things that has prevented progress. I mean, you talk about these long time frames. I'm trying to do it right. Is you have all these different entities that are involved in the planning, and you can see that they're often at odds with each other. So the issue with through running, getting all of these different stakeholders to make these, long-term decisions has always proved problematic. And that's why so little has happened over the years. So, as we consider it, at some point, we hope that somebody can, deal with that or, hold the whip hand and get something done that considers the public interest.
Yeah, Todd, I mean, what I'll say about that is that the users are still the users, right? MTA is still the primary user for the area that they used to be running the project on. NJ Transit is the primary user for the area that they used to be running on. So Amtrak now controls the process, but they don't control who the users are and what they're looking for. And, a lot of the discussion in the Penn swag was making sure that the bidders know what MTA was looking for. They did a set of drawings, give the bidders the drawings so they know where the user is coming from. So you still have to get all these people in the room together. So you've changed kind of the pecking order. MTA has taken the position that they have a lease with Amtrak, and Amtrak has to live within that document. And that's the basis on which, MTA is going to make their decision about whether the facility meets their needs or not. So, I think the game pieces have been moved around. It's still the same game and it's still the same players. And ultimately, they all have to be able to pull together in order to, solve all these various issues.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you very much, David. Okay, I'm gonna take us out of, absolutely. Out of the acceptance. Brewer has joined us. Do you want to speak? Yeah, please go up to the podium where David is right now.
Thank you very much. What a great presentation. When I was borough president, I spent a lot of time seemed like an eon ago, because a completely different project. Anyway, I want to thank your chair for coming to our town hall meeting. That was very nice of you. Thank you very much, sir. That was helpful for the discussion. So a few things. The biggest issue, I think, at City Hall is just the budget. And as you can see, there's a bit of a conflict between the speaker and the mayor as to what is or is not able to be cut. I don't know where it's going to end up, but the city council feels that there is enough money to come up with the $6 billion that is needed for closing the gap. And the mayor, I think, is going to go off of taxes for the property and going to go off of city ideas for raising revenue. The governor, some of you know better, I think, will not go for personal income tax. I don't know if she'll go for a corporate tax, or maybe she'll just come up with money. Who knows? But anyway, that's what we've had 11 days of hearings, and we'll have more in May, and then the negotiations are in between. There's also participatory budget. There's only 21 out of 51 of us that do that. It's a lot of work. But if you get our newsletter, which I hope you do, you'll see that we have everything on it, from schools, parks, street trees, fire stations, and things like that. And people are very excited, libraries. And so this Saturday till next Saturday, we have staff in all the different locations, and people will be voting. So if you're interested, it's on our website and certainly in our newsletter. The other issue at City Hall is city FEPS. Now that's an issue that if you are in a shelter and you want to get a voucher, certain circumstances, you can get a voucher and get into private housing. The city council is pushing to keep people in their homes so that even before you go to the shelter, to get a city FEPS voucher. And it's expensive. It's all in the billions. So it's very back and forth between the mayor and the city. We're also very concerned about insurance, the cost of insurance. There was a co-op in my area Last 24-25, they paid 90,000 for the insurance, and this year they paid $303,000 for the insurance. And if you own or you're in buildings, you can see the dramatic increase. So there's a big push, state and city, to try to look at that. We're also more locally also interested in having a hearing on Tuesday in the Government Operations Committee, which I chair on. I know this sounds like far-fetched, but people at Rikers are not sentenced. 80% of them are just waiting for trial. So they can vote. So that's a nice in concept, but it's very hard to do that. They have to go through paper and they have to go through the legal aid to carry it from Queens back to the Rikers Island. So we're going to try to see if we can find a better way to get at least some of those folks registered and to vote. Not easy to do. We had a hearing today on last mile delivery. And this is mostly focused on Amazon, but there are other individuals who are delivering are obviously independent and not part of a company. And the question is, should they be part of a company and not independent employees? Needless to say, you couldn't get a seat in the place. And there were two opposing positions on the bill, but it's certainly quite active. We are still focused on Columbus Circle. I know it's close to Board 5, not exactly in it. It's been cleaner with the city, the folks from power washing from the Central Park Conservancy and the vendors moving. And I'm still trying to think of a nicer barrier. I think you can't make this up. I wanted to have the barriers that are sealed and tied and screwed into the pavement, but it turns out they moved those barriers for the Thanksgiving Day parade. Who the hell knew? And so I can't screw anything in. So I'm trying to find another kind of barrier that has some flowers in it and will look nicer. That whole area needs assistance. Your wonderful district manager just told me that the Wellington Hotel, God help us, has now got a demolition permit. And so that block is a huge challenge. I have been trying to get some of the homeless to move, but we will have to continue to work with you on that issue. I know there's a lot of interest in making it better. Needs a lot of work. We have some bills that we're also focused on. One of them is there is now, believe it or not, you have to have everything is an animal caucus in the city council. And there was a Chihuahua that got bit by some big dogs recently last year, caused a real havoc. So we have some bills to try to say that, you know, one dog can't bit another dog, otherwise the owners will be in trouble. Right now, you can do that. Nothing happens to you because the dog is considered property. You also need some state legislation to deal with it. And then just finally, in terms of upcoming events, we have electronics, textile recycling, we have shredding, we have how to start a block association or keep it going, free bike helmet and bike swaps. We have some constituent events, both in our office on 87th Street and on Riverside Boulevard. We have scam prevention, and then on June 21st, we always have Make Music in New York, a concert. This year it's going to be in Riverside Park. Thank you very much, Board 5.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to keep going to back into business session with landmarks.
Okay, Landmarks had two resolutions this month. I'd like to have them deemed read.
Deemed.
The first is 215 West 57th Street, the Art Students League of New York. The Art Students League of New York is an art school that was founded in 1875 in Manhattan. And the school's building was constructed in 1892 and was landmarked in 1968. The building is directly adjacent to the Central Park Tower, super tall building that overlooks Central Park. The league is applying, they want to redo the main signage on the building. Their sign currently consists of raised wooden letters that say Art Students League of New York above the main entrance. They want to replace those wooden letters with letters that are actually carved into the building's limestone. They also want to add lighting, which will highlight the new carved letters. The league noted that the proposed carving matches the existing carvings on the fourth floor exterior of the building. As such, the proposal actually makes the signage more consistent with the historic aesthetic of the building itself. There was some discussion in the committee about the precedent being set by allowing a tenant to actually carve its name into a landmark building. However, the committee recognized this is a unique situation, given the Art Students League has been in the building for over 130 years and is likely to be in the building for the foreseeable future, given that they own it. Lastly, the letter calligraphy is being done by one of the teachers in the school, which isn't necessarily relevant to the resolution, but it's just a feel-good aspect of this application. The committee overall was very much in favor and voted in favor of it, 14-0-0. There are some photos at the bottom of the resolution in the packet.
Thank you, Kevin. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? All right, on to the next one.
The second one is 105 Fifth Avenue, also called the Folio House. This building was built in 1902. It is a 11-story residential building. It is both an individual landmark building and within the Ladies Mile Historic District, Landmark District. The building wants to renovate the main entrance to the residential floors above the ground floor. The existing entrance is a mix of Art Deco and other styles featuring glass, granite panels, and stainless steel. Needless to say, this current entrance does not clearly fit into the fabric of the rest of the building or the surrounding neighborhood. The building owner, thankfully, wants to remove the existing entrance and replace it with an entrance and doorway that is much more aesthetically in line with the history of the building and the nearby neighborhood. I won't read all the details of the renovation, but they are listed in the resolution, and there are some photos, not great, but if you zoom in, you can see the existing entrance and an illustration of what it looked like after. Similarly, the committee was very much in favor of this one and voted 13-0-0.
Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Great work. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, next up is Land Use, Housing and Zoning. Nancy, you're up.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Gosho.
You're talking to the mic.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Gosho. I'm Chair of Land Use, Housing and Zoning for Community Board 5. And this month we have two different resolutions that can be deemed read.
Deemed.
Okay. So the first one is on page 11 and 12 of your packet. And this is 1345 Avenue of the Americas. It's a POPs Open Air Cafe recertification. Everyone knows what a POPs is, right? So the first land use resolution concerning the POPs of this Open Air Cafe recertification at 1345 and the Avenue Americas, the applicants seek certification with no material changes to the existing plaza or cafe operations. Community Board 5 previously reviewed this application in 2023 and recommended denial due to noise concerns, lack of public access to seating. And since that time, complaints on the noise have continued with 311 reports, excessive noise, and amplified music affecting nearby residents. The committee found that meaningful enforcement of the noise mitigation has not been demonstrated. The committee also found that the cafe seating continues to function as private restaurant seating only, not open to the public within the POPs. The committee also emphasized that public amenities in Midtown POPs remain a priority and that we're focused on adding public seating and public accessible bathrooms. The resolution therefore recommends denial unless conditions are met, including enforceable noise mitigation measures, clear public access to seating when not occupied by restaurant patrons, and consideration of publicly accessible restroom facilities. So the committee voted to recommend denial unless these conditions are addressed. 12 approved and 1 no.
Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Todd?
Okay, I commend the committee on their forceful advocacy for the public, particularly with regard to bathrooms. So too many of the pops just fall into a state of disregard or disrepair with a lot of these public amenities. So you have to be like a terrier and stay after them. And that's what I see in this resolution.
Thank you, Todd. Any other comments? Okay, next one, Nancy.
Okay, the second one is the DOT Flatiron Nomad bid major concession, which is a ULURP action. And this is something that we pulled back to committee at the last board meeting. And so now we're presenting it after a second public hearing and second meeting on this draft resolution application. So this has to do with the DOT Flatiron Nomad major concession permit for use along Broadway from 19th to 31st Streets. This proposal would expand the concession area. They already have several blocks, but this would expand it, bringing the full Broadway public open space corridor under consistent management, maintenance, and programming. The expansion aligns with Broadway vision and ongoing capital reconstruction. The concession model provides a funding mechanism for long-term operations, maintenance, and improvements of this area. We found this approach could strengthen management of these public open spaces and emphasize that they must retain their civic character and not become overly commercialized. We also identified this as an opportunity to incorporate long-term infrastructure improvements, including green infrastructure, permanent utilities, seating and public amenities, publicly accessible bathrooms. Our resolution recommends approval and emphasizes the key priorities, which are pedestrian safety improvements, kids first public realm, guardrails against over commercialization, sustainability practices, especially for food vendors, prohibiting single-use plastic items and requiring recycling and composting. It also includes providing outreach opportunities for nonprofits in the area. And then, of course, transparency and continued engagement with Community Board 5. The committee voted unanimously to recommend approval with these priorities guiding the implementation moving forward.
Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Todd?
Okay, so I know that area well, and it's improved, and it badly needs input and a master plan and consistent attention to these issues over the entire course of that area. So again, I commend the committee and I fully support this, and we just have to keep after it to make sure these things happen.
Thank you, Todd. Will?
Yeah, I just think that public space in the city is a premium, and I don't support expanding concessions in this area. I think the city should be responsible for maintaining this avenue. I get that we want the bid to contribute through, or we want the tax dollars to go through the bid and then they maintain it. I think we have enough stores, we have enough restaurants, and what we really need is public space. So I wouldn't want to give up any of this avenue and the pedestrian space for additional concessions.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hale?
I see that it recommends guardrails against over commercialization with limits on marketing activation and limited activation frequency. That comes up a lot in parks, and we hear a lot on a lot of sides on how people feel about that. Were there any more specific guidelines on a number of activations or how it will be broken up in different sections of this expansion?
I thought we were in comments.
We are in comments, but go.
Sorry, I
I'll
have
allow the
questions.
So what's the question again?
Were there any, it mentions that there's going to be limitations on marketing activations, but I just was wondering, is there a little more detail on, I guess, what those limits would be? And is it something where it's going to be broken up into sections of this stretch, or just sort of any information on the limiting of activations.
In our resolution, we handled it that we would expect transparency and continued engagement with the bid and with CB5. So they will continue to work with us on all of those matters, we hope.
Any other comments?
Can I just clarify?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, the question before the committee was, should the bid be the overall concessionaire for this area? The particular rule, and we have a lot of, if that happens, we have a lot of requests for how we want them to do that. The specific rule making for that, I think we're a little in advance of it. So I think that's all something that is gonna come later.
Thank you, John. Any other comments? Okay. Next up is parks, public spaces and the environment. Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. We have two resolutions from the Parks Committee, Parks, Public Spaces and Environment Committee this month. May I have them deemed read?
Deemed.
So first up, we have our annual parades resolution. Huge thank you to Todd and Gail for all of your extremely hard and diligent on this. We saw just for folks who are new, who don't know how our parades operation works, we meet with everyone applying for a parade permit, doing post-parade events near Madison Park in advance of the committee meeting. That is where all of the real work happens. So really thank you. Huge thanks you to Gail. Todd. We saw the Persian Day Parade, the Sikh Day Parade, the Turkish Day Festival, the Nepal Day Parade, the Philippine Independence Day Celebration, Pakistan Independence Day Celebration, India Day Parade, and the United American Muslim Day Parade. This was a very arduous effort. Most of what we make sure happens is that all of the materials that have to be submitted to the city are also submitted to us, and that we gain agreements on the record that they will abide by them, largely related to sound, sanitation, so garbage, and duration of everything. We passed and recommended approval of these post-parade events 15-000.
Great, thank you. Are there any conflicts? Questions? Comments? Nancy?
The history of the area where most of these parades take place. When they first started having the parades, it was desolate. No one lived there, no one walked the sidewalks. This was the place that they were sent to because this was the quietest, openest, unpopulated area of Manhattan. But what has happened is we have inherited this, and over the years, these nonprofits that run these parades now expect to use that area, and the area has changed and grown. But we have to consider the history of the fact that these parades and these nonprofits were economic growth growth sources for this neighborhood to really gentrify and become what it is today. So I think it's just important we keep that in mind. If anyone feels like they want to complain about there are too many of them or they're too noisy, they really created this neighborhood. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Nancy. Todd?
Okay, so I did, in working on the due diligence with Gail, we spoke to all of the applicants, as we do every year. And what Nancy says is absolutely the case. So New York loves its parades, and all of these nonprofits have gotten used to doing their parades in our district. And we asked every one of them whether or not they would consider moving their events to another part of the city. And it was interesting, some of them said that they would consider it. Others said that they wouldn't. It had become a tradition. So, the policy issues, I've sat through probably 8, 9, or 10 of these things, right? And if you read, I would urge everybody here who's new to this to read the resolutions, because that reflects a consistent set of principles that we push, which is that they should be smaller, that the city and the relevant agencies of the city that make the decision about citing this should consider finding other parts of the city where these things can be done, per Nancy's comments, because the neighborhood has changed. And that wherever possible, they should mitigate the sound and the noise and the crowds. And towards that end, we've developed all of these stipulations that, for the most part, these groups work really hard to adhere to. But, as we go forward, I think that we should consistently, and again, it's in the resolution, is we have to prod and urge the city to be creative in trying to place some of these things elsewhere. And as I said, some of them were surprisingly open to moving. Anyway, it's something that all of us should think about as this goes on from year to year.
Thank you, Todd. Any other comments? Okay, next one.
Next, so all of the members, including our new members, might remember that back in the fall last summer, there was some concern about overall activity at Bryant Park, including the non-commercial events. This item is the non-commercial events, which we saw. We asked for a lot of information from Bryant Park Corporation about that. You may remember that from September. We are very happy to report that this resolution is largely based on significantly more data that they came to present about the number of events, including a site plan and overlapping times of what was happening that is non-commercial. As is our regular routine practice, they've committed in this resolution to return to us, and every time that there is a commercial event, they will also let us know if there is a non-commercial event happening at the same time. That is memorialized in this resolution as well. Two flags that did come up in our meeting is that we had questions about sort of surveillance items and any type of commercial use that was happening for it, because it is a public space. And we also were future planning against any facial recognition. So those are two things that did come up throughout this, but otherwise we were very encouraged by the openness, and we still would like additional data, but we were very happy about this. That's a nice follow-up item for anyone. And the resolution passed 15-000.
Thank you. Any conflicts? Any questions? Any comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we have an update from our Commercial Park Use Task Force. An update on their progress. I think, Todd, I will kick it to you. Todd and Christopher are co-chairs of the task force.
Okay, everybody. You heard the applause earlier, and all of us in the task force, that would be Andrea, Zool, Mike, myself, and Christopher.
And Athena, sorry.
And excuse me, and Athena. So we're making great progress. We've collected so far almost 100. We've been canvassing the parks as best we can. We've collected almost 100 surveys using the best technology in a carefully thought out survey. What we need are volunteers. We're only 6 people, right? So I would urge everybody, and Brad has mentioned this at some of the other meetings, if you have some time, get in touch with Christopher and myself, and we'll give you the barcodes and everything you need, a clipboard if you don't have the facility with using your phone, and go out there and help us get the data. In order for it to be statistically significant, we have to have at least somewhere in the neighborhood of 400. So we're at 100. So we still have work to do. The other thing I would say is I think it's really important. We've got between 55 and 60 community CB5 members. All of you should take the time, if you haven't already, to fill out the survey, right? Because really, the task force has been deputized by Brad to come up with the evidence that we need to make recommendations to the board. So all of you, you can fill out the survey. There are text fields where you can put in your own ideas. There's going to be a written report when we're done with this. Please, if you can't volunteer to go out and canvass the parks, then please fill it out and give us your ideas. All of us know this district, we know our parks. And really the big thing is it's not just the big parks that we want to canvass, right? It's the POPs and all of the other public places. So to the extent that you people can go out and, hit some of those places, I think that would be great. What we're going to try to do is to get the widest possible exposure is ask the elected officials and the bids and everybody else to see if they can put information about our survey on their social media organs and their newsletters. And, I think the issue at stake is the commercial use of public space. So that is a hot button issue. Those of you who've heard me know that my big thing is the unauthorized use of digital media. And on the Parks and Public Spaces PPSC committee, that's really what we're doing, is we're constantly weighing the issue of commercial use of public space and balancing the equities. So the more data we have, the better our recommendation with me. Now with that, I'll turn it over to Christopher. He's a little bit under the weather, and I'm sure that he's got some things that he wants to add.
Yes, sorry, I woke up this morning with a sore throat and I was like, I'm not gonna come in because I know I don't want to expose people to whatever is causing this. But apologies. I wanted to say it is incredibly fun to wander around the park with a QR code and ask people to take the survey. It's really good to talk to park users. And so, even if you did this, for a little while on any given day, if it's part of your routine to walk past or through one of these parks, and you can talk to a couple of people, that's incredibly helpful. If you're associated with a business or organization that is right next to one of the parks, please contact us so that we can, get more people, filling out the survey as much as possible. The only other thing that I would add is that this is kind of the basis for how, or we're trying to come up with the basis for how the Parks Committee will evaluate, all of these activations on an ongoing basis, right? How do we do the matrix and stuff like that? So this is really the time where input from the board and input from the public can really ground us in something that, for the next maybe 3 to 5 years, we can look back on and use as a precedent and something like that. So when we're ready with the surveys and the analysis of previous resolutions, we will have a report probably in the next couple months. Luckily, right now during data collection period, the weather is perfect, and Mike can vouch for this, that it's really great on a nice day, especially to stand in the park and talk to community members.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Christopher. That's all we got. Oh, questions?
Yeah, you guys got questions? Zul, go ahead.
If I can. So guys, this is incredibly easy. Todd and Mike and I were out there in Bryant Park just for a little while beforehand. Christopher and I were in Union Square for maybe 15 minutes last week and got 24. You get out your QR code. I'm a member of the local community board. We're really interested in what you think about our parks. 3 people are sitting right at the table. They all have their phones in their hands already. They get the QR code. It's filled out in 2 minutes.
Is there a question there? Zul? Questions?
I love when he does that.
Kevin?
Yeah, when does the survey close?
I think we have, Christopher, what's the date?
Yeah, our timeline, we have an internal timeline, but it's not June, about June. So
got it. Okay.
We should have, or probably sometime in May, actually. So we have about a month. I mean, we could ask for more time. So it's kind of a flexible window, but for now, it's like this, at least throughout this month.
Thank you.
And a question for Marissa?
Is you heard that we're going to be using this, we've been using a matrix based on information that was 10 years old. We need a little bit more time to get the right information. as the summer months come, I think that's well worth it. But let's do what we can now.
Thank you. Other questions?
A question for
Hold on,
Marissa.
Hold on, Zul. Did you have a question?
I
Andrew?
have a comment.
Okay, comment. Other questions? Yoden?
Where's the survey? I'm trying to find it.
Okay, so just contact me and Christopher will send you an email with links. We have different,
As well, correct?
we have different barcodes for different specific
Marissa, do we have the QR code up on the?
barcodes. Christopher, you want to speak to that?
Guys,
Yep.
The QR codes or just how the
Yeah.
survey is?
Yeah, just, we can send out an email blast to all of the board members
Yeah.
as to where they can get the QR codes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it to the office and then I'll have them email everyone. I don't know how often I email everybody. You probably don't want me to do that, but,
So we'll take care of circulating this to everyone after this
right,
meeting.
right. Thank you.
The general principle is there's different types of QR codes. There's one for Intercept, there's one for this park, there are different ones. So if you have a favorite park, you bring up the right QR code on your phone and you just start talking to people. And as Zul said, it's a lot of fun. It really gets you in touch with the people and, we're the ambassadors, especially as the weather gets better. It's not work, it's fun.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go
Is
ahead,
it
Gail.
frowned upon having participants fill out the survey on more than one park?
No, I think that too much information.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments? Andrew?
Okay, just want to put in a plug here. There is a survey just for targeting residents around the park and pubs. And a lot of us live in this community, and hopefully if you can contribute in terms of, doing the survey, volunteering to gather the survey by filling out the resident survey, and maybe invite your spouse and friends who live in this neighborhood to fill that out. And also we'll circulate that to our home as well.
Thank you. Comments? Mike?
I gotta tell you, I'm having fun with this thing. 25 out of those 100 are mine. Each of them, talking to somebody eyeball to eyeball. Let me tell you about this guy I met on 14th Street, sitting on the steps facing 14th Street, and he's colored up in 18 different fluorescent colors, and he's sitting there. So I sit down next to him, I say, "You look great, great." And I got a conversation going with this guy, and he ended up telling me about all his stuff that he does, filled out a survey. Great. That was in Union Square. In Madison Square, this couple sitting there, they were taking in the sun a couple of Saturdays ago, I think, or Sunday. And I sat next to them. I started a conversation with them, and they started telling me how great the park I had. I love it. I live over there. This is their backyard. This is what. I mean, come on. Today, I was over here and I saw a bunch of people on that side, the 42nd Street. I walk over there and I see a woman, she's drawing and she makes a bird drawing. All right. She said, "Don't you see it? There's a bird." I didn't see no bird. She said, "Here's the picture." And she shows me a picture that last week she took of that bird sitting right there. And I said, "How often do you come?" "Oh, I walk a half hour to get here. I live out on Long Island." She was like far out of, and so I said to her, "Listen, would you mind filling out she gladly did it for me. I mean, it is fun. You just get to meet people, you get to talk.
You should all be having this much fun.
And this is in writing, not with a QR. I don't know how to do those.
Thank you, Mike. Any other comments? You're on.
I'll just say very quickly, we were here last month and the interim president at Gutman talked about connections between the board and the students. Since we're across the street from Bryant Park, this might be something that the students here might be interested in getting involved with. So Christopher, I leave that to you. Or Marissa as well.
One last comment.
Sure, go ahead, Zul.
This is really the bedrock responsibility of members of community boards throughout the city. We're here representing a specific geographic district and all the people in it. So as Mike made it very clear, you're out there and you're talking to people in a district where there are neighbors and residents, for their visitors, their commuters, their workers. We really need to hear from them more and more on many, many, many issues.
Thank you, Zul. Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Todd. Thank you, Christopher. All right, last but not least, we have CSQL. Tiffany, you are up.
Okay, well, hello, my name is Tiffany Revis, Chair of the City Services and Quality of Life Committee. We don't have resolutions to talk about this month as usual, but we did have a really great meeting this past month, so just wanted to make sure everybody had that information, a little bit of update on it. We had Dr. Anne Marie Sullivan, who is the governor's mental health, she's the commissioner, sorry, she's the commissioner of New York State of mental health. And she came to talk to us about the governor's mental health initiatives and the budget proposal. So I'll stop there with the budget proposal pop because we talked about that a lot today and there's still a lot of ongoing with it. She was joined by a few other members, Jordan Feener, who's our regional representative for New York State. And just a few of those things. I'm just going to say that for the whole presentation, the office has put it up on our website. So if you go to the CV5 website and go to the CSQL committee, it's already on there. So her full presentation is on there. So anything specific or details, just go there. But a few things just to include, to say that they spoke about on the presentation deck. The universal child care and pre-K. It's another one called More Money in Your Pockets, which is enhancing and reforming the child independent care credit. Also keeping New Yorkers safe, which public safety is part of this committee as well. They're putting in the budget $352 million in gun violence prevention, $305 million for discovery and defense services, and $77 million for subway safety efforts. Educating the next generation, universal free school meals, the clean water, and one of the big ones is their youth mental health. 17.5 million is going to expand in the teen mental health first aid training program. The goal is that all 10th graders in the entire state will receive this education. And then just a couple of the initiatives that they spoke about was the SOS teams, the Safe Option Support. Currently in New York City, we have 17 SOS teams. 3 of them are overnight outreach teams. They are also speaking about the transition to home units. And also the Office of Mental Health has created a new office and regional teams to partner with hospitals that have licensed inpatient mental health programs, as well as community-based programs. So those are just a few of their initiatives that are going into this next cycle. Again, I know there's tons of questions on mental health and homelessness and public safety, but I just encourage you to look at the presentation for anything specific and anything that's coming up in any of the meetings that we have in the state. That's
Thank you, thank you, Tiffany. Any
Thank you.
questions? Comments? Hey, thank you. So that concludes the committee reports. I will now open the floor for any new business. Any new business? Mike.
Surprise. I will be doing a free Garment District Educational History Walking Tour in a couple of weeks. I forget the date. You can find that information on my website, which is my name and some other stuff.
Continue, please.
You're all welcome to join me. Again, if you don't have a good time and if you don't enjoy the tour, double your money back for the free tour.
Thank you very much, Mike. Zul.
Yeah, I just would like to say thank you to Gutman College for the use of this space, and also on behalf of the Rising Together Theater Company, thanks to Gutman. We have a partnership with them, an internship program. We just graduated our first intern and now have hired him as a digital service assistant. And we've just started a new intern this past week. So we're very thankful to this participation with Gutman. We have another show coming up on Saturday, the 25th in Manhattan. RisingTogether.theater is the website.
Thank you, Zul. Any other new business? You're on.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, because we've talked a lot about surveys, so it sounds like maybe the park surveys will go around, but as Brad mentioned in his chair report, something you should all be looking out for is a member survey for every member of CD5. Please fill it out. It's really important that the executive committee understand where people are in terms of like how things are going on the board and how people feel on the board, things like that. So let's not get confused. That is a member survey for all of you to fill out, and we really encourage you to do so.
Thank you. Any other new business? Okay, thank you, everyone. Next, we have our public session. Are there any speakers either in the room or online who would like to speak? As a reminder, at this time, any comment should be about a topic that was not covered during the meeting and that they did not speak to the board about during the public hearing. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized either in person or virtually. Okay, and Yaron is also reminding me, which is very important, that we should probably conclude our votes. So let's go ahead and take 5 minutes to do that. We'll reconvene at 9:22. Trying to wrap up, but we have to announce the votes before we can do that. We did it, yeah.
I just got my vote out.
Well, I wanted to now read them out.
Guys, you gotta sit down.
Everyone,
come on.
We have to announce the votes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
We can get out of here.
All right, let's go for it. Okay, we're gonna do this quickly. Approval of the March 2026 minutes, 32 yes votes. That has been approved. Regarding Boxers NYC, the request for enforcement proceedings, 27 yes votes, 4 no votes, 2 abstains. That has been approved. Next, regarding Baza on premises liquor license application, we have 29 yes votes, 2 no votes, 2 abstains. That has been approved. Next, Grand Army Plaza DOT improvement plan, 32 yes votes and 1 abstain. That has been approved. Moving along, Art Students League, the interior exterior modifications, 32 yes votes, 1 abstain. That has been approved. Next, Polio House, the tenant entrance remodel, 32 yes votes, 1 abstain. That has been approved. 1345 Avenue of the Americas Pops, the open air cafe recertification, 31 yes votes, 1 no, 1 abstain. That has been approved. Next, the Flatiron Nomad major concession for the uniform land use review procedure public space plan. Try saying that 3 times fast. 31 yes votes, 1 no vote, 1 abstain. That has been approved. Next, 2026 post parade events has been approved with 31 yes votes and 2 abstains. Finally, Bryant Park, the spring summer programming, 31 yes votes, 2 abstains. That has also been approved. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.